You're in the back, come on. And you? Oh, hi, you're here. And hopefully a dean are there and open up. The deans are here. I mean, they were having. So.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting, Clackamas Community College Board Work Session, to order. Today is Wednesday, and it's a beautiful day outside. March the 18th, and it's around 6 o'clock. We have our sabbatical abstracts on tonight. Amanda Coffey and Nora Brodnicki. Did I
Yes.
say it right?
Yes.
Terrific. They will be here to share and talk about sabbatical presentations. Amanda and Nora, please come forward. You're already forward. So we can get started whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, thanks, Amanda. And I've been on this committee for, I think, 26 years, and Amanda 15. Amanda, we're sad to lose her. She's retiring at the end of this year.
Oh,
Amanda teaches in the English department, and I teach in the art department. And it's been a great, this is my favorite committee. That's why I haven't left it since I've joined it, because every year I get to see what all of my colleagues do on their sabbatical, which are amazing projects. So let's see, of our 5, we only had 5 faculty go on sabbatical last year, and 2 of the 5 are here tonight, Greg and Tammy, and their respective deans will introduce them after we're all done. But as noted in the abstracts, we had a range of projects, only 5 projects though, that ranged from physics in everyday life to furthering development of our study abroad program. This year, there are 9 faculty who are currently working on sabbatical projects to benefit the college and our students. And next year, we have verified 8 sabbatical plans. So, some years there have been 15, 20. The past couple of years, it's been much fewer, probably because we're shrinking as a faculty, but, also just because not everyone takes a sabbatical when they're eligible for it. Our sabbatical committee includes myself, Amanda Coffey, Chris Kanishka, Ivana Ferguson, Eden Francis, and Dawn Hendricks. This year, however, 3 of those people were on sabbatical. So we asked Effany Debbie to step in from the science department to step in this year to help us review sabbatical reports and applications. And Amanda is going to tell you a little bit about what we do.
Yeah, so the committee works with faculty who are in the queue and ready to go on sabbatical. We help them understand the process for writing a proposal. And we work with HR to make sure that members who are in the queue and have been moved, because sometimes they defer for a year or 2. So we just make sure that everything in its right order, and then we support faculty while they write those proposals. So they will write them, they'll submit them to HR. HR, timestamps them on time and then gives them to the committee, and we review them as a committee. And often will have questions because we're not the discipline experts often in their fields. And so sometimes we just have questions about what they're going to do. But we verify the appropriateness of their proposal, the activities, and the time that they are requesting to go on sabbatical. And it's helpful when people like Nora and I have been on the committee for as long as we have, because we've seen, I think maybe hundreds of sabbatical projects and proposals. And so we do have a good sense of, how long something might take. And so, it's a conversation. And then once we verify it, we send it up, back to HR, and HR sends it out to the deans, and then it eventually ends up on Vice President Plotkin's desk, and then it goes back to HR, and then that's ready to go. And then they get a formal letter from HR that they have been, I think, approved. I don't know if that's the right word, but they are ready to go on sabbatical. And then when faculty come back by October 15th of the year after their sabbatical, they have to submit a report to again, the college. And so they turn that into HR. Again, the committee reads it around. We verify that what they did is what they said they were going to do, and that they've written about it in such a way that, any readership, including yourselves, would be able to understand how they spent their time and what the benefits are and were to students, the college, their department. There's lots of ranges of projects for what people do. And so the committee works with faculty, liaisons with deans sometimes when there's questions, with HR, and help faculty get through that process.
Do you have any questions for us about sabbatical committee before we hand it off to our deans and people?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
What if their project is not approved by you, the group? What happens?
Well, that happens very rarely. And it's often not an approval. It's we've in the past said, this doesn't seem like a full year sabbatical. Maybe it is a 1 or 2 term sabbatical. Maybe, and so this is part of that conversation piece. Eventually we hit that point of verification, but that's what Amanda's talking about, where there's a conversation. Well, initially we'll be like, I don't know if you got enough going on. Were you planning to do more? Or occasionally we'll have people who give us like a gazillion and 10 things to do in 1 term. And we're like, can you cut this down? I don't think you're going to be able to do all this. So
Yeah, that's most often the case,
Yeah.
where faculty write a very ambitious proposal and we say, I don't think you'll do this in 10 weeks, or that's just a lot. But, faculty use the time to get the, course development, to work on assessment reports, to do a lot of professional development that they don't have really, adequate time for during, their regular teaching lives.
Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
thought you were going to put a nix on some of them.
No, that's not really our role. We don't approve. I think the language in the contract is that we verify. And so we are, colleagues of these faculty, and these are, their professional projects, and, they know their work, and they should be in contact and collaborating with their department members and their deans.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, is Anne Mary here? Or David, are you?
I think the script just asks for Greg to come up and introduce himself, if that's
Perfect.
okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
Yeah.
first up is Greg Bostrom.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Greg.
Hi, yeah. So my name's Greg Bostrom, and I'm the full-time physics instructor here at Clackamas. And I went on sabbatical last spring. Oh, thanks. And my plan, or what I did, was worked on some writing, and I'm going to talk about that. Let's see. So, physics, it was sort of developed to kind of explain nature and how nature works. It's been around for a while. So there's a lot of physics in nature. But unfortunately, to really explain it very well, requires some mathematics typically, which can be scary to a lot of people, and unmanageable, especially at our level. So I've had this strong interest, this desire to write this book about the physics of nature, of like being outdoors for a long time, and make it not mathematical, but more conceptual, so that like every, what we call the layperson or whatever could, at least understand it. And I've been thinking about it for a pretty long time. And then as I was thinking of what to do for my sabbatical project, I thought that this would be a good opportunity. It would give me a block of time to start working on it, get the ball rolling, and then once I got things going, then hopefully I could keep up with it and keep going as I went along. So yeah, so my project was to start writing what they call a popular science book on the physics of what I started calling the physics of the outdoors. So like being out in nature and kind of what's that's about. Oops. Uh-oh. Oops. Is that the right? Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I had, there's kind of 4 things that I worked on during the sabbatical project. The first was that to help me with my writing, because most of the writing I had done up until now has been pretty technical, writing journal articles for my dissertation and theses and all that. So I took this course that I found. It was online, and it was a 4-week course writing about nature. And I was writing, so my approach was to write it from the science perspective. So trying to, use physics to explain some things about nature. The other people in the class were writing, as nature as inspiration and a lot of stuff. So mine was a little bit more sciencey than everybody else's, but that was a good approach. It was like we did 4 essays. And so I wrote those. I worked on, developing sort of more descriptive language and analogies. So that was kind of my main interest for that project. And then I worked on reviewing what was already out there to kind of see where my book would go. We'd fit in where it might be set apart from what's already out there and things like that. So, and then I spent some time out in nature. So I did a little bit, some hiking and camping while I was on sabbatical. So more local, mostly local Oregon areas. And then, while I was there thinking about what to write about and things like that. And then I started writing. I worked on, so my goal was to write a draft of 1 chapter and then come up with a table of contents. And so I accomplished that. So I completed 1 chapter. I settled on what was probably the hardest one for me to write. I thought that for some reason that would be a good idea. So it had to do with the wind. So how does the wind, what types of winds there are? And my interest was like the sound of the wind that you hear in the trees, like when you're out hiking and things like that. It's kind of where I ended up writing about that. But it kind of expanded into a lot of description about how different types of winds and things like that. So was that book, that chapter that I wrote. And then from there, so that was during the sabbatical time. And then as I had planned, I would continue on even after sabbatical. So over the summer, I wrote another chapter on why the sky is blue and some other things related to that. And then I wrote a 3rd chapter and I'm working on the 4th in what is minimal spare time recently because it's the end of the term. But so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And then I just settled on the name of the book, Wild Physics. So designed to be like a field guide. So that's sort of the approach that I was taking for that. So, and I think I have a couple examples. These are the most photogenic ones that I had. So, some other ideas, sunsets, waves, rainbows. That's kind of where I'm working on right now. And then eddies in the water, flames, and then like those little sort of ridges in the sand and at the coast that you see. I'm going to be talking about how that works as well. So, and then what does that have to do with my students? I thought I'd do that. So one of the things that I wanted to do was to incorporate the things that I've been thinking about in my class. So again, my classes tends to be fairly mathematical. It's physics with calculus is the one I teach. So bringing in these more conceptual ideas, I think, is useful. And so I got to do that here at the end of this term. And then next term in spring, we cover a lot of the topics that are going to be in the book. So I think we'll be bringing that in to my courses. And then the long-term plan is to develop a conceptual physics course based on the topics that I'm talking about in the book. And so it would be less mathematical and more approachable for a lot of people. That's the goal. And there's conceptual physics courses at some of the universities that would sort of match up, I think, pretty well with that. So that's, yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Yep. So any questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead. Okay. First of all, this seems like a really cool book. I'm excited to read it when it's done. It seems like a great book for parents to read whose kids are in the phase of asking a bunch of why questions.
Right, yeah.
And then give the parents the words to be able to explain that, because the kids are not going to go through the calculus process for that. Yeah, that being said, physics, like out of any science, is probably the hardest one to explain without math. So that is
Yes.
quite an undertaking.
Yeah.
And I want to know what you have learned about how you're explaining those things. I'd love to hear a few of the analogies that you came up with, and also I want to know what the types of wind are.
So let's see, I'm trying to think of some of this, like the problem with avoiding all of the math is that there's a lot of text that now goes with it to sort of build up to that. But as far as types of winds, so there's like the sea breeze. So when you're say at the coast, there's the wind that blows in or off the coast. And so that's caused by, pressure differences in the heating of the land versus the water makes a pressure difference that I go into some detail. It's not as easy as people make it sound at first. And so I had to expand on that. And then mountain breezes. So the top of the mountain gets heated up first. And so you can get some airflow from that. And then at the end of the day, in the evening, it reverses course. So those are two that I talked about.
Why does it do that in the evening?
So because of the mountain, the top of the mountain would cool off sooner, right? And then the air would flow down the hill. Yeah. So, yep. And so, yeah, so like for that, you would talk about like the wind is sort of like flowing water down the mountain, or flowing up a chimney sort of during the day, things like that. I did use a thermometer example, which I'm realizing, not many people see the red colored thermometers anymore, but I was using that as an explanation for wind and for the sea breezes. So like the air, like it expands. And so that's like a thermometer that's going up, and then that causes the air to shift over to the lower side. So that's one of the analogies I used for that. So, yep.
I have a quick question. How did your students, when you brought this into the existing classes that you're doing now, how did they respond to it?
Yeah, they seemed interested. So it was sort of a little bit minor. It was really the light waves came at the very end of this term, and so I just had to bring it in just at the very end. So I didn't get to talk about it a lot yet. So it's sort of the matching up the content that I'm covering versus what I had described in the book, what parts I worked on in the book so far. So,
Yeah.
but this spring it's I'm more excited because there's a lot of topics there that I'm going to be able to relate to this. So, yeah, and hopefully maybe get them outside looking at something or doing some measurements or something.
I would think that would be refreshing. I mean, well,
Mhm.
going outside is often refreshing. but
Right.
Just having that brought into the class would be a nice contrast to
Yeah, all the math that they have
all
to
the
do.
math that they have to do.
Exactly.
Like your cover, if you're going to use that cover, it's very nice.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I took that at Scouters Mountain near my house, so.
Okay, yeah.
I couldn't help but think I like to watch OPB's Oregon Field Guide.
Oh,
I couldn't help that maybe seeing this as like an Oregon Field Guide episode where you do the camping and you do the work and then you have your students with you. It's just like, oh, I want to do that. So that's I'm really excited to read the book, and I
thank
think
you.
I think again, sort of like such putting this material in sort of layman's terms is really helpful and sort of helps it also expand on the beauty of the state that we live in and the outdoors. So thank you. I'm really
Yep.
excited about it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and one of the things I noticed as I did the lit review is that there's books that talk about physics like in everyday life, but they're not always focusing on nature, and so I thought that was something worthwhile for me to pursue. So, yeah. Right.
It's an interesting topic to me as well. And it sounds like a very clever way to get some hikes in as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Spend some time outside. That's yep. Mhm.
I just have a quick question. When does the book go on sale?
My goal is by the end of not this coming summer, but the following summer, I should hopefully have at least the draft of everything done. So, and then go from there.
Sounds really
I don't know what it sounds. That's a intimidating process to go from writing the draft to getting it out. So to do more research on that, I guess. So, yep.
Okay,
All right. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
I take it this wasn't working, or is there a trick to it? Test it. Nope. Nope. I will. If I'm not able to do that, I'll just look at you to do them. All right. So first, I just want to thank you for this opportunity for me to share highlights of my sabbatical story. My name is Tammy Vanderwerf. And truthfully, my first public speaking event, I was remembering as I thought about this speech, was in kindergarten, and my class was playing the play of The Little Red Hen That Thought the Sky Was Falling. That came up during my sabbatical in a very unexpected way again. My mom was there when I was in kindergarten cheering me on. And over 55 years later, my sabbatical experience happened, and my mom was suddenly diagnosed with pancreas cancer. And that event took me back to feeling like the sky was falling once again. And so through this experience, it's truly nothing short of a miracle that she's my special guest tonight. So she came and she's supporting me again as I give my sabbatical speech, and I'm really thankful she can be here. So I'm a CCC graduate, and I did my prereqs here, and that helped me realize my dream of becoming a registered nurse. And is it going to go? Nope. There it did. Okay. So I spent 8 years working with children and adults in surgery as an OR nurse. And during that time, I often would discharge a patient after surgery, and it was obvious to me that the home living situation was less than optimal. That sparked my desire to be able to include community service as an important facet of my sabbatical experience, because I wanted to address the root cause, especially of food insecurity beyond the doors of the hospital setting. So for my sabbatical focus, good, it's working. I'm going to just share highlights of the 3 different things that I did. I'm going to choose just the community service that I did this evening. And that was the main focus, but there was a special bonus I never expected during this sabbatical time. And I will share that little twist with you at the very end as well. as I get the right direction going here. So the first thing that I was able to do is to volunteer with the St. Vincent de Paul, and I delivered food boxes at a holiday time. Seeing the people that we delivered to in their homes turn around and share with neighbors who they felt were in a worse position than themselves was really deeply moving, and I wanted to do more. On each of the slides, what I've done is I've listed the evidence behind the experience that I had, and I've put that up for you to be able to see. The next place that I stopped was the Love One community local volunteer group. And I went here twice. They have a food pantry in many places in Clackamas County, and it serves the people here that we care for and have many of our students here at CCC. The first visit was not at all what I expected. I didn't even end up getting out of my car. I was going to, but it was such a busy place. And what I've done is gone ahead and taken a little excerpt of an actual assignment I made out of this experience, and I'll share that with you. I learned a lot through this experience, I will just say. So one excerpt that came from that. Oh, they're all out of order. Okay. There it is. So this is all written from the perspective of a student volunteering at a food pantry and what they're observing. A shiny, expensive-looking car drove up and parked right in front of the food bank, and that surprised the student. Who might be arriving in such a fancy vehicle? The person that got out had 2 grocery bags in their hands, and they joined the long line that wrapped all the way down the front of the building and around and into the parking lot, waiting to get their food. And the evidence here was the empathy, kindness, and avoiding judgment all help foster diversity. The student had never considered the energy it takes to arrive early, to stand in line in the cold weather with thin clothing, choosing items in the food pantry and carrying those groceries back to their car with no rolling carts, no one to help you unload the heavy groceries. A key component of removing implicit bias is the nurse's ability to reflect on their awareness of bias they hold. Awareness is key to providing inclusive patient care. Now, the gates closed before the pantry even opened at 10:30, and in less than 30 minutes, all the food was gone. So the student returned to the food pantry and actually went inside and helped a few months later. And when the customers began circulating through the food pantry, many seemed almost ashamed, like they were never establishing eye contact with anyone. The student felt the shopper's discomfort when they would ask how many granola bars or how many cans of corn were allowed. Food insecurity can be accompanied by social isolation and community bias. The student noticed that some items were in surplus, such as cupcakes, which only last a few days. There were a few specialty items, such as gluten-free or lactose-free food, but those went quickly and there wasn't enough to go around. Food insecurity can negatively affect early childhood eating behaviors, which are often screened at preschool or daycare centers. The student observed there are more than just food items offered at a food pantry. Things like COVID tests, books, houseware items. The student realized these extra items provide a more holistic approach to meeting multiple family needs. And family resilience influences the ability to adapt and navigate unanticipated difficulties, including financial hardship, sudden illness, or food insecurities. One volunteer mentioned that just 1 year ago, they were standing in line as a food pantry customer, and now she and her daughter had joined so they could give back in this way. It was moving to see this one family who had overcome food insecurity now reaching out to help others in the community. Fact, 77% of the Oregon Food Bank staff have a lived experience of hunger. Now, during this second visit, let me go back one. During this second visit, the food pantry volunteers served 320 people in just 14 minutes. Now, that's only half of what was served on the students' first visit. Many of the food pantry patrons were now afraid to leave their homes due to ICE presence in our communities. So we may not have helped create our current social climate, but we can help affect a positive change within it. And then came the unexpected twist, which I gave you a little hint about. So when my mother suddenly required major surgery and around-the-clock care during my time, I alternated with my sister, and we provided 72-hour shifts in her home. Now, that unexpected experience provided me the opportunity to give insight from the family's perspective that I could bring back to my students. During her recovery, my mom insisted on making something positive I could bring to each of the students. So I invite you to just take a moment and consider your own interactions with others as I read these attributes, and reflect on your own story as we focus on ways that we can provide inclusiveness and belonging in the people we work with. The attributes included strong communication skills, an appropriate sense of humor, taking time, not being rushed, asking permission, allowing for privacy, not passing judgment, providing consistent, respectful care, critical thinking, empowering the patient's voice to be heard, and bringing their personality, allowing their own gifts to be shared. But the full circle moment and the true bonus of my sabbatical was on the last 3 days of my mom's stay, which was long in the hospital. It was a past CCC nursing graduate that took care of her for those 3 days. And I didn't even think of or recognize them. They came to me and let me know, you were my instructor. And just having that happen was positive for the student, for the family, and for the patient as well. The research here was get to know your patient. You cannot treat them as a whole person if you don't know them. This includes social determinants of health or the non-medical factors, access to health quality and care, education, financial stability, their neighborhood, social and community connection, and their living environment. That's what influences the patient's health and well-being. So these different opportunities, first being able to do the community service, are what brought me back to the ability to write a project for my students that promotes discussion on many different aspects. And I'm going to go way back to the beginning where my slide got misplaced. And those are here. I was able to help our students meet 5 of their program learning outcomes in our Nursing 110 course, overall supporting patient health and well-being, including the implicit bias and the ability to support in the way of volunteering in our own community and the importance of that as being a care provider. So the next time that you find yourself feeling like the sky is falling, I encourage you to reach for the beauty of the gifts and talents you hold and share those with the world. I want to extend my sincere appreciation for your investment in the depth of the learning that a sabbatical opportunity potentiates and the invaluable, sometimes hidden benefits that it brings to our CCC community and the students that we serve. Thank you. Questions?
Well, I expect to see more speaking in your future. You did a fine job.
Thank you.
Yeah, it shouldn't be so, I don't know, reluctant maybe in the past, or just opportunities haven't presented itself. You did a great job in your
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Congratulations to you and your mom. for coming here tonight together.
Thank
It
you.
was full circle moment.
And truly, it's the first time she's driven out here since she had all of that happen. So I'm really proud of her that she's back to that baseline that she can drive herself on out. So it's pretty cool. Thank you for saying that.
Terrific. Thank you.
I can really see how an awareness of this just makes, I mean, almost all the nurses I've ever seen have been wonderful that I've dealt with, but I can see where having this awareness will just make such a difference in the patient and in the nurse and in that important relationship. And so this is good. Just to have it broken down like this is good. I think, having these different pieces, the outcomes and everything that you had for the learning outcomes. So anyway, good job.
I'm glad it was in a way that made sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of our presenters, especially our physics instructor. I think that is right on. And yours for sure. We appreciate it and we learned a lot tonight. So I know I did. But the nursing part of it is really, really good for all of us. And I think we can take away a few things from both of you. So appreciate all the time that you guys did for that. Thanks. I love doing this. I turn it on and I turn it off. Okay. The work session is adjourned. It's about 6:37. So at 6:45, we will re-adjourn to start our meeting. So you might go to the break time and go and get some water. I start to say beer, but
And is this Amanda Coffey's last board meeting?
Yes.
Oh.
Keep me on track, brother. Okay. Welcome. Oh, that's right. That's Welcome to Clackamas Community College Board of Education regular meeting. It's Wednesday, March 18th, 2026, 6:45 p.m. We will now call this meeting to order. Katie, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Position number 7, representing Canby and Malala, Irene Konev.
Here.
Position number 6, representing Estacada and Colton, Jane Reed.
Here.
Position number 5, representing Westland and Wilsonville, Ryan Ingersoll.
Here.
Position number 3, representing Gladstone and Johnson City, Wade Hathorn.
Here.
Position number 2, representing Clackamas and Happy Valley, Rob Wheeler.
Here.
Position number 1, representing Milwaukee, Alina Krolenbrock.
Here.
Position number 4, and our chair, representing Oregon City, Josephine Jo Crenshaw.
Here. All of our board members are here today. Terrific. Now we will have our labor and land acknowledgement. Irene will do the labor.
The Clackamas Community College Land Acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the Clackamas Community College campuses reside on the traditional homelands of the Clackamas, Cascade, and Tumwater bands of of Chinooks, as well as the Tualatin and Pudding River bands of Kalapuya and the Northern Malala people. They lived and prospered by maintaining strong cultural ties to the land and through wise management of resources. As signers of the Willamette Treaty of 1855, they were removed from their homelands to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation, where they became members of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. Please join us in taking this opportunity to thank and honor the original caretakers of this land, their lives, and their descendants that live on as tribal members today, still carrying on the traditions and cultures of their ancestors.
And now the labor acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the foundation and wealth of the United States was built upon the forced labor of enslaved African people, involuntary and trafficked indigenous labor, and the often exploited labor of immigrant domestic and farm workers. Their vital contributions and resilience in spite of violence, terror tactics, and bloodshed are integral to understanding our nation's past, present, and hope of what's to come. The prosperity many enjoy today is rooted in centuries of labor extracted under conditions of injustice, inequality, and ongoing systemic oppression. Acknowledging this truth is a step towards honoring those who were denied justice and toward creating a future that is more equitable, inclusive, and humane.
Thank you. The Clackamas Community College Board of Education welcomes community members to attend board meetings to become acquainted with the programs and operations of the college district. Members of the public are encouraged to share their comments with the board during the agenda item labeled public comments. Comments from the audience at any other time during this meeting, except for the agenda item public comments, will be declared out of order. We ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Our first person signed up tonight for comments is Chris Konishka. She's on Zoom. Please, is it he? I'm sorry, he's on Zoom. We'll take him.
Hello, good evening. My name is Chris Konieczka. I am a full-time faculty member at CCC, as well as past president of our CCC Education Association Full-Time Faculty Union. So here is my comments. As you know, all 3 CCC union locals are currently bargaining our next contracts. What you may not know is that Nancy Hungerford of Hungerford Law Firm was hired to serve as chief negotiator for administration at all three bargaining tables at a stated rate of $350 per hour. Nancy is both a member of the CCC Foundation Board and a well-known anti-union, pro-charter school attorney in Oregon who negotiated for Portland Public Schools Administration on the contract that led to the Portland Association of Teachers strike in November of 23. While feedback from all three employee groups here at CCC about this selection did result in removal of Nancy as chief negotiator and instead retaining her as an advisor, we cannot ignore the original intent of her presence at the table in the first place. Not to mention the expense at a time when we are again bracing for cuts to address the structural deficit and the state funding reduction. I'm curious if the board was aware of her hiring beforehand, and if not, why are decisions of this type being made without your approval? In addition, it was announced at the November 25 board meeting that the CCC budget for the next academic year would be figured assuming no cost of living adjustments for any employee group. That comment was immediately followed by, and I quote, "But we still intend to engage in good faith bargaining." I'm sure you can all imagine the cognitive dissonance produced by hearing these two conflicting comments. I ask you, as the stewards of this college and its positive works in the community, please consider these facts and their impact. I encourage you to ask yourselves and the executive team you oversee, is this the sort of messaging we want to send to students, the staff, and the community? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. In our room tonight, we have Catherine Long.
I long ago missed my chance to say longtime listener, first-time commenter. But I would love to, I could say that tonight. Me.
Catherine, can you please start by stating your first and
Yeah.
last
Oh,
name?
yes, I've got it
Okay,
right here.
thank you.
Sorry. So Chair Crenshaw and directors of the CCC Board of Education, my name is Catherine Long. I'm a resident of Clackamas and I'm full-time faculty. I would like to comment on the recommendation to increase student tuition by 4.6%, the general student fee and technology fee by 7.5% each, and the college service fee by 33%. I noted that the change to the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, over the past year was 2.7%. So I felt curious about the recommendation to increase student tuition by nearly 2% over CPI. I wondered if our students had jobs whose salaries will increase even 2.7%, let alone 4.6%. How will they afford this? In last month's presentation, the business office shared with you that the average increase to tuition over the last 5 years was 4.1%. And that might make it seem like an increase of 4.6% isn't too much. However, as I shared with administration, the average increase over the last 5 years was 3.8%. So not only are you being asked to raise tuition almost 2% over CPI, you are also being asked to increase the tuition nearly 1% over average. I'd like to note that the larger increases over the past 5 years were in response to a pandemic and years with high inflation. So I think we need to recognize that those years are a bit of an anomaly. While I appreciate that administration spoke with ASG leaders who received tuition waivers, I spend more time talking to the folks who have a lived experience more like what Tammy described in her presentation. Paying bills is challenging, and they are like the students you heard about last month who receive help from the food pantry or the foundation. And I appreciate the information administration provided about median household incomes, but I would ask you to consider the financial reality of our students at CCC. I think we should consider their lived experience, their financial needs,
as we talk about increasing tuition and fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. We have one additional comment from Adam Wicker.
Thank you, Board, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Adam Wickert, and I am proud to be a full-time employee and the Vice President of Clackamas ACE. I stand here in solidarity with all of the faculty and staff that are bargaining their contracts across the state, especially my colleagues at Portland Community College. I've worked in higher education in some form or another since 2006. I've worked at many different colleges and universities. I recognize that it is a privilege that through bargaining, I get to help create working conditions that will allow others to feel as great about Clackamas as I do. As we move forward bargaining, our teams are committed to engaging in the process in the most transparent and open way. ACE's bargaining is being done in person, but folks are able to Zoom in and listen. We invite members to share their perspectives. We welcome any and all opinions. All perspectives have value, and we are committed to ensuring that all of the voices of our members are heard at the table. In ACE, we have members that have worked at CCC since the late 80s. We have members that have just joined the college last year. Some of us work in cubicles, while others are in labs or keeping all of the spaces around campus looking great and ready to serve the community. While our experiences at CCC might vary, we are drawn by one common bond: serving students. It is an honor to work with folks that are committed to creating the best possible working conditions to do that. Lastly, I want to invite you to consider observing our bargaining sessions. We understand you have very busy lives outside of CCC, but feel free to join us when you are able. I'll be happy to share our information with you. Just reach out, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you. I want to thank all of you for sharing your information with us tonight.
If someone got here too late to sign up, is it too late to do a comment?
What do you think?
It's up to the board if they would like to open that up or not. Typically, we take the signups at the beginning of the meeting and then hand them over. So it's up to the chair and the board if they.
I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay.
Make it under 3 minutes, though.
Yeah. I'll be quick, unlike when I arrived here. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jane Littlefield. I am a faculty librarian here and I live in Oregon City. I'd like to share my thoughts on the value of belonging. Belonging is at the center of everything we do in CCC Library. It impacts how we deliver instruction, curate collections, and design our physical and online spaces. We are visible and vocal in how we communicate the value that everyone is welcome and belongs at CCC. Here's a recent example. Going on 9 years now, the library has partnered with our GED program to provide books for students incarcerated at the Clackamas County Jail. This term, the instructor asked students to write down what having books from CCC Library means to them. Some quotes. During my time in jail, mentally, the time can be hard. Books can sometimes make me forget that I'm incarcerated altogether. Helps get out of my head, makes me feel normal. Having books means the absolute world to me. Being in jail is already very depressing. You are away from your family and loved ones. Being able to focus on something else helps to ease some of the pain. It doesn't fully take the pain away, but it helps probably more than people know or can understand. Having books is freedom for my mind to escape these concrete walls. This special library collection helps us communicate to these students that they belong not in jail, but that they belong at CCC or wherever their minds can take them. Pivoting away from the library, but still focusing on belonging, I do have an ask of the board related to this college value. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, is in our community. In January, the Oregon City School Board passed a statement related to immigration enforcement activity. That statement affirmed the dignity of immigrant students and families. Yesterday, about 150 Gardner Middle School students walked out to protest actions of ICE. Our K-12 friends are vocal and visible in demonstrating the value that everyone belongs. My ask is that our college board consider issuing a statement that reaffirms our commitment to student safety and privacy and that everyone belongs at the college. A statement from our very top leaders is a vocal and visible step in countering the negative impacts that ICE is having on our students. It is a critical step in living up to our value of belonging. Thank you for your consideration of my request and for your attention tonight and for letting me speak.
Thank you so much. Tonight, consent agenda consists of the following items as we continue through our business. We're looking for approval of our minutes from the executive work and regular session on 2/18. Acceptance of our monthly financial reports. Item 2B, personnel report, and item 2C, our bond update. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda for discussion? Seeing that there is none, do I have a motion for the approval of items 1A through 2C? We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda from items 1A through 2C. We will vote by acclamation. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? No abstentions? The motion carries. New business for tonight. 2026 to 2027 CCC board meeting schedules. I think we all have read this under new business, but should I read this again? On new business first read, we have 2026 to 2027 CCC board meeting schedules. The schedule follows our typical meeting schedule meeting on the third Wednesday of each month, except in August, when we hold our board retreat. The board retreat is planned to be held on Saturday, August 8th. As there are many board members who might have a conflict of this date. Are there any board members who have a conflict of this date? So you should advise us, Katie, specifically. Also, the ACCT Leadership Conference will be during our October board meeting. So there's a suggestion to move that meeting to the second Wednesday, which would be October the 14th. If there are not any objections to that change, we'll have Katie update the schedule and bring it back to us under the consent agenda in April, on April 20th. Any questions on that, board? No? Any discussions? Anybody have any changes, any comments they'd like to say? This is not a voting item. This is just first read. So you can plan on for the next meeting to have anything that you'd like to say. Board policies. BV and BBA organizations or authorities, duties, and responsibility of the Board of Education. BBB and BBBA, board members' qualifications and elections are appointments. We have a few board policies to review. I would like to turn it over to Katie, our executive assistant, to lead us through this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for having me tonight. I am going to do a quick presentation here, just so that I can keep on track with the items that I want to share with you. So the two board policies that are up for review this evening are actually 4 current board policies that we have now combined into 2. So we have taken both BB and BBA. So BB was organization and authority of the board. And then BBA was board powers and duties. And we have now combined that into one policy, which is organization, authority, duties, and responsibilities. And then also for the bottom 2, we had BBB, which is board elections, and BBBA, which is board member qualifications. And we have combined that into one policy, which is now titled Board Member Qualification and Election or Appointment. Those were in your packet, and I did put in there a track changes along with a clean version so you could take a look at it. I did want to point out that you have a copy of the equity mini tool that we had talked about this summer at a few work sessions. That's at your dais there. So if you hadn't had the opportunity to do so yet, if you could take that home with you, and before our next meeting, if you could review these 2 policies using that tool and make sure you don't have any additional suggestions or changes you would like to make or have us make on these policies, that would be great. I wanted to let you know that our 3 members of the board that are a part of the board policy review committee, that's Jane, Rob, and Irene, did meet in January to take a look at these, and they did utilize this tool. And we felt that it was a great tool. It ended up bringing away some main key points of consistency, language, and gender neutral things that needed to be fixed in these policies. So we definitely found items that could be updated. A couple of the key main changes that did take place on the BB/BBA policy was the replacement of the word power in the title, the replacement of the word citizens in the body of the policy. It was thought of the review policy committee that the board governs on behalf of the residents of the district and not necessarily just the citizens of the district. So using this equity tool, it was able to point that out to us. And there was great discussion that took place during that time in making that change into this policy. We did add a purpose statement to, and you will see in all of the policies that will come forward to you that we have now added a purpose statement to all of our policies. That is part of a new policy standardized template that we have started using here at the college. And so you'll see as we update or as we review our policies, we'll start updating them with this new policy template, which includes a purpose statement. This particular policy, we did align with the Oregon Community College Association's recommended language. We do not subscribe to the OCCA policy subscription service. So we use Oregon School Board Association, the OSBA, and that is really geared a lot more towards a K through 12 district than a community college. And so as we're working through some of the reviews of our policies, we will be comparing them to the OCCA language that has been used by other community colleges. And the one main thing about this particular policy, we did remove the legal language in the policy because it literally just copied the law. And we felt that that was already stated that we were going to follow the law and that that's already stated in law. So there were changes to just updating some things that weren't in law, such as that you do your job on the best interest of the public, and you look at your decisions that are tied to our college's mission, vision, and values. Some other items that you are fiscally responsible and you are trying to keep a fiscal sustainability outlook when you're looking at decision making. So some of these things that were added in that aren't necessarily written very clear in law. So those were some of the changes to that policy. The key changes to the BBB and / BBBA, the board member qualification and election or appointment. We added the purpose statement. We do have a question for the board, which I'm going to skip for just a second so I can finish these. We added elections are conducted by Clackamas County because that's currently not in our policy, but that is who conducts our elections. And we did remove the zone and precinct language because again, that's managed through Clackamas County Elections Office. So if someone was interested, they could get that information through the election office and it would be more up to date than having to make sure that our policy is up to date every time a precinct changes or gets added to a certain zone. The question we do have for the board is that the review committee had looked at some language that was in this policy previously and wondered why it was there and if it was something that the whole board wanted to continue to have in the language or wanted to remove it, consider removing it. At this point, the review committee decided that they wanted to leave it in. So if there was a strong opinion of any other board members to change that, we can have a discussion about it. But the question is, do you believe that a member that's interested in being on the board should reside in the zone that they are applying for immediately preceding the election or appointment for at least 1 year? In cities and counties, that is a requirement usually. A lot of times that's based on a charter language, and we don't have that language in ours, and there is no law that states that someone of a special district like ours, a community college district, has to live within the district's zone for a year before applying to be in that position, but it is in our policy. So if that's something that you're interested in keeping in, it is currently in there. If it's something you're interested in removing or having a discussion to remove that, that's something you can open up for discussion after I'm done with my presentation. So the next section was that just to let you know that this did go through our new shared governance process here at the college, and it is quite a lengthy process, but just so you know, these policies that we're reviewing tonight fall under the purview of our People and Culture Council. And the People and Culture Council has broken out into 3 subgroups or committees, one of those being policy. And so if someone was interested in either creating a new policy or revising an existing policy that falls under their purview, this would be the process that they would go through. They would review it with the Cougar Pause. They would send it to legal if needed. They would obviously send it through the board review committee first. Then they would post it for college community feedback from students, the public, or staff. And it gets posted on our website for at least 3 weeks. Then it would go to the Public People and Culture Council meeting for review. You could also provide feedback at that meeting. It would get approved, and then it would go to the Oversight Committee meeting for approval, and then to the board for a first read and a second read. Once it has been approved by the board, it does get reposted to our website as an updated change, and then we do send out a series of communications to let folks know that the policy has been changed and updated. Here are a few of the ways that we've been communicating with folks to let them know that these 2 policies are up for review and accepting feedback. We have a all-staff CCC This Week email that goes out once a week on Mondays of every week. It's been noted in there several times where they can go and find the policies that are up for review and provide feedback. It's also been noted in our student email that also goes out on Mondays for student. It's called Student Bulletin. And we have a policy and procedures webpage on our CCC website. And it's been posted there with instructions on how you can provide feedback. And then we also have it at our council meetings. We shared it out at the oversight group meeting, which is an all-staff public meeting, and then also at our People and Culture Council meeting. Ways that people can participate or provide feedback is they can review the policies on the website. They can submit a Qualtrics form, which we have created, to ask a few questions and then provide slots where they can put in input. And then they can also send us an email to either the shared governance council that that policy goes through, or we have our own policy email that they could send it to you. And then they can attend a board meeting and provide public comment, both at the first read and the second read of a policy. So that is the rest of my presentation, and I'm open to questions, and then also that one piece of discussion for you.
I have well, just a comment. I have a couple of comments, but one, Katie, I just wanted to thank you so much for making, when we on the policy committee received this, it is, a lot of work has been done. A lot of hard work has been done. And to look at all of these in such detail and present them with us, and I just so appreciate that. You do a great job of that. And I guess the other comment, I don't know if we're ready to, if other people have just regular comments, but I guess my thinking is that we should have it in policy that a potential board member should live in the zone that they are applying to or whatever, looking to be voted from, at least a year before. I think it's important that a person knows the community that they are representing and they're all, and all of our communities are very different. So I think we become somewhat of a voice for our communities. So I think it should stay. Stay, is it stay or we're adding it? Or stay is.
It would stay.
It would
It's
stay.
currently
Yeah.
in our policy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to also thank Katie and everyone else who put so much time and energy into revising and reviewing these policies so that indeed, by the time we receive them, there has been a lot of thought and research that's gone into it. I too agree that it should be a year because I think within a year, you'll be in the store, you'll be connecting with other people at different events, and you'll get to know the district a little more. So I feel like after living in a district for a year, you kind of are a little more ready to apply or to be appointed or to apply to run.
I had some questions about the substantive changes made to the combined BB and BBA article. So I read the original article. The original article contained a long list of very specific board duties and responsibilities that were very concrete. And the new list of duties and responsibilities is much shorter, much more vague, much more abstract. And that seems like a very, very big difference to me. And so I'm curious to hear more about the process of like why those changes were made, and who gets those concrete responsibilities if it's not the board anymore.
Those still are the board's concrete responsibilities. That's just what's literally stated in law. This was just a copy of exactly of what the law says. And so we didn't feel that we needed to restate that same thing in a policy because we're already following the law. And so instead of restating it in a policy, we put that we will follow the law, and then we will do these things in addition to that.
Thanks, that makes me feel a lot better. And yeah, I agree with the process of consolidating some of these very short, like one-page policies. There's like 100 one-page policies. I think it would be a much more approachable, having like a handful of like a few-page policies. So I love consolidation and organization in that kind of form.
I have similar comments about the changes that were made, and I love simplicity, right? But as part of that simplifying, I think it would be really helpful that you would also provide all such laws that apply that you believe or this body believes that grants powers and duties to the board. Okay. Not, I don't think it's just in ORS 316 or the one that's cited in there, right? Okay, was it in there?
Yeah, at the very bottom of all the
Okay,
policies,
all right.
list all the ORSs that are
Right.
included in the, yeah.
Yeah, because there are things that extend into the assets of the college, right? Things like real property, other things that have to be disposed of, and I know they're disposal things, but there are a lot of issues that go into things that require that to be taken care of, including the responsibilities of this party to issue contracts and other things like that as part of that process, right? So no question that the law is the law, and that's what should be stated. And I do not like policies that just cite the law. So they should be commended for those. I just want to make sure that this board is aware then of all those laws, right? And if you don't know how to access those, they're easily done just through the internet. You can find copies of all those if you're ever interested in those. Okay, so.
I have a couple comments. On that point, I'm a little mixed on that, to be honest. I think I do appreciate that language was the law. But I wonder if there's a way to elevate the specificity of those laws, potentially written in the document, referencing it, just because it might help people understand, like expanding it. So rather than just the ORS blah 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 on some of them, like here's what that means. And maybe it's a really long footnote like you read in books sometimes. Just because particularly with a public or somebody that's even interested in potentially running, like that just might make it more accessible rather than a separate hyperlink and then trying to read through. And when you're actually reading the law, it's all smushed together and you got to find the section. So that would be my only, because that wasn't my first comment, like, this is a big change. Like I didn't, oh, that's what it is. So that's my comment on that. I actually disagree about the residency of the zone, particularly because I represent Westland and Wilsonville. And there was a small chunk of Wilsonville that is in Irene's district that I lived in previous to living in Zone 5. So I do think it's worth saying you need to live maybe within the whole district for a year, but I'm less concerned about the specific zone of that. Because the zone, yeah, I mean, you're literally across the street. If you move into your neighborhood and you move down the street in Wilsonville, you're going to be in a different zone potentially. So that's just a personal experience that I think is what makes me disagree with that one. And then I do want to say too, I do appreciate all the work from those on the board that went through this process and your work of like combing through all this, distilling it. That's really important work. So thank you all for doing that. And then I appreciate the others kind of commenting and engaging in the process. Policy work is often not fun, but very necessary. So thank you.
I just have a follow-up comment to follow up with you, Ryan, as well. That was my comment really about the nature of making sure people understand what those rules are, the laws are, right? So I think they should be clearly designated somewhere within the documents that we have, right? So I agree with you about that. Because that just goes to transparency in my mind, right? So, and the rules are very complicated. And if you don't know which ones apply, you may think, especially if you're in the general public or someone else, you may think that certain rules apply to a community college and they don't, right? So it's very confusing when you jump in. I did want to make a comment about the 1-year tenure, for a position, and I would just say that if I have one question really about that, and that is that could we even legally today require that? Has anybody checked on that? Because if you said the law doesn't allow it or require it, right? Can we go beyond that and then make up our own rules, right? I don't know that you can or can't. I have no fight in the game with regards to whether you do or don't. I would be in favor of not doing that, right? Just because I think that, as Ryan pointed out, there are a lot of people that come from this community or join this community and have interest in becoming part of that. I'm not sure there's some magical number around a year, right? That makes you any more informed than any one of us, to be honest, right? As part of this process. So I'm not necessarily in favor of keeping that rule in place, whether it be legal or not.
Yeah, so it is in our current policy, so it has gone through legal review through the OSBA. But I will ask them again. They do know that I've asked about this particular thing. They did not say it was in law. But as a board, we are allowed to create policies that are a little bit more stringent. So we do have to follow the laws, the federal, state, county, but we can also dive in a little bit deeper and require a little bit more if we want, as a board. So that would be something that you're requiring more, than just the average of being a elector of the district. I can run it by them again. I'm not sure how folks feel. I feel like I'm getting a mixed bag here, so I don't know that I have a consent necessarily to go either way. Also, the piece about the law language, I'm wondering, since these are policies, these are actual policies, if that's how you're feeling, that you actually want the laws a little bit more clarified in there, or if it would be maybe more helpful to have something like a handbook for a new board member, or something like that, that would actually have laws explained a little bit more, not necessarily in policy. So I don't know. That's another kind of nuanced question for you.
I mean, you could have a page on the website that says, what does a board director do? And it's a very simple document that outlines it, that could link to the policies and all the other things. But I would be okay if the policy is just the policy. But I like the idea of maybe something a little more friendly to the public that says what we do. I mean, could be a way of adding some, I would be probably okay with that. But it shouldn't be buried on the website. It should be like one of the first things that maybe you see.
I think I have good direction to move forward, and I'll be bringing this back to you at the next meeting. Thank you so much for your input.
And Katie, thank you so much, and the group, for getting this all together, because I know that was a bear.
Your thorough presentation.
Yes. Thank you. All right, we're now down to our new business action, so we'll look for that back on the April meeting. Thank you, Katie. On the new business today, we have 26, 27 tuition and fees. Dean Christie Owen had presented this to us during our last meeting. We also had the opportunity to hear from our ASG President, Samuel Power. Does the board have any additional questions regarding this item? If there are no questions,
Just a quick moment. I am like a little concerned by what we heard from Catherine earlier about the impact that this is going to have on students, and that ASG might not be the only voice that might be relevant in hearing about this. And I'm curious to know if there's like any additional wiggle room to get to a little bit of a lower number now that we know that CCSF is going to be in a better situation than we had previously thought.
Well, I can maybe address some of that. So as we all know, the CCSF, we did not have to take a cut to our existing budget this biennium, which is great news. How they did that, though, is cause for concern. They were using bridge funding, and they cautioned us that this next time around that may not appear again, that there may be some additional cuts next year that we'd have to look at. So as we don't have a magic ball and know what's going to happen next year, but we are concerned about having a larger reduction and having to come back next year with tuition with a much larger increase than what we're looking at now. So as of today's reading, we're suggesting that we still move forward with that recommendation.
any other
I think I said something about this last time. This is always my least favorite vote of the year, and it is not easy to do. And but I also see in this big picture that this is one of the three ways that tuition and fees is the stool that we are attached to. It's important. And I agree that it's better to have it incremental like this. Is probably going to be going up just like everything is going up. But to have it not have to be this huge, to have it low this year and then have it to be a big jolt next year, I think it's kind of important that we keep it this way.
And just two other comments. One is we still remain the lowest in the metro region, below PCC and Mount Hood, and still, I believe, we're the fourth lowest in the state. Is that correct, Jeff? For community colleges out of the 17. So while yes, I take Kat's comments very seriously and know that any increase is difficult for our students, we still work to maintain that we're affordable. The other piece is, and I know everyone in this room knows this, we're still making reductions, even with the flat CCSF, maintaining that, we still have that deficit left over that we're trying to resolve. So this will help with some of that, but there's still other reductions. So depending on what ends up being, we'd have to adapt to that as well.
I just have one other additional comment to add to that. Yeah, I agree with you, Jane. This is one of the more difficult decisions we make every year as part of that process. There are few tools, though, that this institution has in order for it to not only survive, but to be sustainable. And tuition and fees are one of those tools, essentially, right? And we certainly don't want to use those to impair access or inclusion to this institution. But there is a stark reality, and things like comparing the cost of operations of this institution to things like CPI and other things are a misnomer. The reality is that institutions of this type are suffering from PERS. They suffer from healthcare costs. They suffer from a lot of other things that have continued to mount, right, the pressure financially for us to continue to be sustainable. And this has become a challenge for every educational institution in the state and across the country in order to find a path towards survival, right? And your other option is to start whacking away at the institution, right? Chopping big pieces of it off in order to do that. I don't think that we're quite ready to do that here. And there's always a fine line to find that path to sustainability as we have now approached survivability, right? And that's where we're at. So, right. And as much as this is not very popular, this is one of the things we have to do to survive.
Yeah, and I also wanted to acknowledge that the last time we had to make such a challenging decision was in 2022-23, where we went 5.4%. And at that time, it seemed like such a huge amount. And yet here we are again, having to work with the 4.6%. It's tragic, and it's really hard to vote in favor of something like that, because it really lands on the parents and the students and ultimately the community. So
Yeah, I would agree. I think this is not a fun thing. I think one of the things that I think a lot about is what this does. We continue to hear stories from people in this community around the student focus of our faculty, of our teachers, instructors, the staff, the support systems that we have in place for students. And those things cost money, and all of those things cost more money all the time. And as Wade said, we don't have very many levers to pull in terms of how we pay for those things. And in a lot of ways, I don't like this, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we're providing adequate resources out of our fiscal responsibility as a board to make sure that we have what we need to provide and care for the students here that we have and that we hope to have in the future. I'm going to say this twice because I get that privilege. We have a flagship fundraiser through the foundation, Rise Up, that's on May 13th. And that's an opportunity that we ask our community members, our friends, to support the foundation so that we can continue to provide scholarships to our students and increase the capacity that we do that to help students be here and learn and focused on their education rather than worrying about the expensive cost of tuition and other things like food and housing. So.
The next body? Is there someone else that has a comment? If I were to comment, I would say I do not agree with the raising tuition. However, as Wade has indicated, I do not want us to fade into the sunset. So we have to be very cautious and very intentional about what we are doing. And I think our group has really worked through this. And we've been out raising funds. We're doing all the things that we can do to help to alleviate some of the stress. We have a great unit that brings food so our folk can come and eat. So we need to, in order to exist, we're going to have to do something that is not really advantageous, or we don't feel good about it ourselves. But if I have to vote on it, or I have to say yes or no, I'm going to agree that we have to do something to stay alive. And that's what it's all about. There are no other comments. So
I know when I first got on this board 9 years ago, there was an even bigger reluctance, I think, to increase tuition on students. And they, in my opinion, they were kicking the can down the road. And that's why we've had a structural deficit for several years now. And that unfortunately, this is kind of the timing where we're having to, in essence, pay for that structural deficit. And that is, as has been mentioned several times, is the biggest tool we have to fill that gap. And we're not kicking the can down the road anymore.
So if there are no other questions or proposed changes to this, I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the tuition and fees.
I'll make the motion to increase tuitions and fees.
Seconded.
It's been moved and second to approve the proposed increases to the 26-27 tuition and fees. So let's take a vote for that. All those in favor say aye.
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 Yeah, aye.
Those opposed? Are there any abstentions? For the record, the motion passes. Thank you. It's a hard decision. We won't be eating for a while. All right. Thank you, board members. Appreciate it. Presentation from our budget process overview and preparation. I'd like to invite Dean Christie Owen and Dean Ann Ennis to please come forward to present.
Hello and good evening. Dean Christie Owen, Business Services, and I'm joined tonight by Dr. Deanne Ennis, the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness and Planning. We are doing a mid-cycle budget process report. So, I really recognize that the last agenda item that was before you, it's a big topic, and I understand the gravity of the vote and the information that comes forward. So, this presentation is not a financial or a numbers presentation. It's really more about some of the process and some of the steps that have gone along the way since we last came and worked through topics last November with a forecast and then direction to proceed to start to prepare scenarios or options for consideration later this spring. So with that, that's what we're going to be here for. Is we are really looking at those processes that are in place that happen in advance of decisions that tend to come with the proposed budget, which happens later this spring. Our intention is to set aside this time today to give that update. our topics that we're really going to be looking for is, how the college has gone about working to develop those options to provide flexibility in a proposed budget. Because as you recall, last November, we did not know the decisions that were going to come from the state legislative body. They were giving us an indication of where they were sitting with their own fiscal forecast and what was coming forward. And they were basically telegraphing to institutions, not just higher education, that there may be a need to be prepared for a mid-biennium budget reduction impacting the 26-27 budget. We'll also go through and talk about how we developed those scenarios, how we reviewed options that as they came in using an impact matrix, where we have been in collaboration, working through shared governance and the Cougar pause in the process. And then we'll do a very brief what's next. So since November, we got the unwelcome information and the request to be ready for scenarios. The presidents and the vice presidents set target amounts for the respective areas in their organization of what does it look like to have flexibility in options. Option may be revenue items or they may be expense-related reductions, because as we had discussed in the November presentation, it is not going to be possible to either revenue your way out of this situation or fully reduce expenses out of this situation. So we wanted to set apart time for modeling those options. We then shared and presented that plan to expand beyond a smaller subset of leadership at the college to where divisions and administrators were working with their department leadership to identify options that were within those target dollar amounts. Each of those options and talking through the financial picture of the college also came forward with our finance council, and we had to start to stand up our budget advisory subgroup, which was not necessarily planned to be a significant part of this spring, because remember, we were not planned to approach the budget process with a potential shortfall in state funding. We basically had to act pretty quickly and to get the machine working again. So building out those options, each option contains impact statements, putting pen to paper, what's the proposal, what's the logic model behind it, documenting findings from the Cougar pause as each of those options was worked through within leadership, taking that opportunity to assess the impacts of the decision, who bears the burden, what outcomes, unintended consequences could present themselves as a result of the decision point. There also may be opportunities to have additional data documented and shown, and we want to make sure it was captured. These proposals were then internally reviewed by the business office for consistency in approach and costing. It's not a stage gate or a part in the process where something falls to the wayside. It was really just to make sure that complete work was provided back into the process so that we could move things forward for the executive team and for other review and input. After checking for the overall approach, these proposals then were worked through a weighted impact matrix by a subset of college leadership. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ennis now to talk through the use of a weighted impact matrix of the approximately 42 proposals, exactly 42 proposals at approximately $3.4 million.
Thank you and good evening. I'm going to take a step back for a moment and share with you what the strategic budget process looks like as a whole here. We have it depicted here as a circle, and it's a circle because it has multiple entry points, pause points, and inputs. That doesn't mean it necessarily proceeds around the circle in a cyclical fashion. It may move over pieces or go back to something, but it's certainly an ongoing process. As Dean Owen noted, we collected 42 proposals that totaled about $3.4 million. And each proposal contained data, impact statements, and a Cougar pause reflection. The next question we had was how to take that information and put it into a format that allows the college to make budget scenarios and move forward with our budget advisory group with a common language and a common way to talk about these 42 different proposals. To take this up, we used a weighted impact matrix to provide input on the overall impact of each proposal within a common set of understandings. I'm going to take a minute to talk about what a weighted impact matrix is, how we designed it, and then how we used it. A weighted impact matrix is a form of multi-criterion decision analysis. These are tools that are used to help decision makers convert qualitative data into quantitative judgments that are consistent, reliable ratings that support rigorous examination. Tools like this are widely recognized in research literature as an objective and defensible method for evaluating complex organizational decisions, and they're particularly popular in higher education. Weighted decision tools like the one we used are also recognized as a key part of continuous improvement works, which we are engaged in here at the college. The impact matrix we used was built directly from the college's mission and values, ensuring that every budget reduction proposal and revenue option was evaluated through a lens of what matters most to our institution. Weighting of each criterion in the matrix was intentionally adjusted to reflect and prioritize CCC's values. Thus, proposals with the greatest potential impact on students, equity, and mission-critical functions received higher scores, noting their increased impact. So how did we use it? All 42 proposals were scored using the matrix by a subset of college leadership that is outside of the executive team. Information from that scoring was presented to President Cook, the vice presidents, and other members of the executive team as an input into their budget proposals. The scoring results will not be shared further with a larger audience, as some of those proposals contained information that was deemed confidential, and not having that confidential information, but also seeing the scores might make them difficult to understand. This information is one point in a series of inputs that the president will receive throughout the process. But more critically, the use of this matrix existed to help Dean Owen and other folks at the college actually construct those scenarios to send to the budget advisory subgroup. One key takeaway that we found from using this matrix was that we discovered a number of proposals which on their own merit or implemented individually would have low impact on the college. But if a series of them was implemented at the same time, the impact would be significantly greater. And we wanted to guard against that. Thus, Dean Owen and others were able to use that matrix to construct scenarios to go to our budget advisory subgroup that ensured those proposals that would have impact together were separated and not put forth in the same set of scenarios.
Quick question. Can you describe again what these, an overall description of the 42 proposals? They are budget reduction proposals?
Sure, but these are
They're
budget
all
reduction
budget
proposals.
reduction.
Some of them are revenue proposals
Revenue proposals or budget
or
reduction?
budget reduction proposals.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yep, and one final note that I'll make on the use of our matrix, President Cook, the first thing he asked is, how come nothing scored as high as I thought it might on here? And it was scaled from 1 to 5, depending on the weights, with the highest possible being a 5. And his question was, well, why not higher? And I'm pleased to report that because of some of the changes that we've seen, because of the structural deficit being where it is, but the CCSF not with quite the reduction that we thought we might see, that actually those proposals were eliminated before we even got to the matrix phase. That the president met with the executive team, the vice presidents and the deans met with their direct reports, and the president met with everybody who reports up through his office. And we were able to pull all of those proposals from the table before we even got to work. So they didn't even make it into the matrix.
Thank you for that, Anne. So I think that actually feeds a little bit into your question, Jan, contents of a scenario, Jan, oh, my, Jane, the contents of scenarios. So from this point, you need to build a scenario. And when you're building from that additional input, you're thinking through like the suite of options or what makes up a scenario. Because as we said, there's going to be some revenues, but then there's also going to be some expenses. And so when you look at a revenue action, that's when there's a revenue or a realignment, like something that happens functionally on the revenue side of the ledger that frees up capacity that offsets an expense. When you look at an expense action, that's really a reduction in expense. So something you may consume today, you are no longer going to consume tomorrow. And that those are those costs of the operations of the college that would have a change or an impact. One of the other things about the impact matrix that I think is helpful to think through on these scenarios is a zero wasn't possible. Every decision that happens has some form of impact, and that we needed to consider what that impact would be and where that impact could be felt. So then in consultation with the CFO, VP Schaefer, we had to also say like, well, what's the dollar value of the scenario? And we're making these decisions at the same point in time as we're not necessarily getting full information from the state on what do we need to be prepared for. But we also know that we do need to be prepared for the structural deficit, because that is outside of any of the actions that were going to happen at the state legislature. So what is a number that gives enough flexibility that you don't get locked into something too tight? And we landed on a number of $2.6 million. So what that means is that's net of revenue and expenses. It's not just all expense and it's not just all revenue. That dollar amount has the flexibility for understanding the impact and the options, so you can assess the trade-offs as you're starting to see what information, what proposals can make up the parts for a final proposed budget. And that's the decision-making framework that's happening later this spring. So these scenarios were balanced in order to show those trade-offs, and we set them as a scenario that is more revenue reliant, so very heavily weighted towards revenue, but it's still going to have some expense reductions. We then had a scenario that is a little bit more balanced on revenues and expenses, but you're starting to see where some of that trade-off is. It's like, oh man, like you're starting to go deeper into some of that expense. And then a scenario that is much more heavily expense reliant, where it's very minimal changes on revenues impacting the college, and like how many of those proposals going deeper into that matrix, deeper into those options, what that really starts to look like. And you're starting to basically buy more impact at the end of the day when you start to move down that scale. So the Cougar Pause is also part of this. As we talked about the circular pie, we know like these things don't all just happen in a linear state and go one by one. So when we look at the presence of the Cougar Pause, every proposal has that first initial pause done by the work of the area where the option came up from, of taking the time to reflect on the impact of those decisions and what is the most relevant from their perspective with use of the Cougar Pause tool. One of the things I've really appreciated about the Cougar Pause tool is it's not about a right or wrong way. It's really about taking the time, effort, and mental energy into doing that pause and thinking strategically, but then being able to move something forward and assessing for that impact. This tool has also been used while filling out our policy and our process documents. So the executive team, for example, we held a dedicated conversation on revenue and tuition and fees. That's a hard topic, and that's something that we wanted to like take some time and like really start to assess like what's going on here. Where are some of those impacts? This is a big policy decision that comes forward. Our finance council and Bass cohort requested and received a LEAP office training specific to the Cougar Pause tool. And we've been encouraging our Bass members to also participate and take part in any one of the Cougar LEAP opportunities for training. There's embedded questions in every review and assessment that the budget advisory subgroup is using along the way. They are currently meeting during this spring, now almost spring term, winter-ish into spring. It's been so warm out. So they have been working through, and we have been making sure that as this budget process continues to be iterative, that it is also taking time to reflect the effort and the intentionality behind the use of the Cougar Pause in the process. I've seen processes in the past at other places where honestly, the equity assessment tool is the last thing you do. You've made all the decisions and then you bring forward your equity assessment tool. And we have wanted to make sure that from the front end, and as we started to look at each of these touch points, that we were continuing that narrative of the use of the Cougar Pause tool. Communications and budget process. So this is really looking at communications that have happened since we have last met here as this group. President Cook, he sends out communications and updates as we get information and as is appropriate for the college community. We did hold an all-staff meeting in January where there was a presentation and then question and answer. Stood up the website and have a open forum where feedback and questions can come in from staff. And then as we get amass information that can be updated, particularly now that we're at a point where we have a decision from the state. We now can update with what we know now. Sometimes you go periods of time where you don't necessarily have a lot of concrete information to update, and then you get a chunk of information. Our Finance Council has public meetings, and we share, Vice President Schaefer presented at our most recent Finance Council meeting just a brief update of what had happened at the state. Those are recorded and then posted on the college website for shared governance meetings, because sometimes not everyone can make every meeting, and we want to make sure those that information is publicly available to our community. So next steps, the process continues. So as the process is continuing, we do have our Budget Advisory Subgroup, or our BAS, is meeting in March, and then through April, the executive team will be receiving this input in iterative fashion. Tim, Jeff, and David all come and hear the feedback at the end of the BAS meetings on some of the discussion and input that they give both verbally and then in written documentation that comes back. We want to make sure that we are bringing that information through channels appropriately to help as they are crafting their decisions. We will have a final spring forecast complete here as we get ready for the proposed budget. So that is where you will see more of the numbers, if you will, in the budget process. And then the president provides a proposed budget that will be online and available on May 1st and will contain the decisions as we have worked through this framework. So that was our intention today here, was to really go through the process that has been happening over the last couple months. And if there are questions on that, we're happy to work with that time remaining.
Are there any questions from the board?
Can you clarify for me in this process, besides the obvious, which is the presentation of the budget, in the committee where the board is present, where the board would get information along that process path before we get to a budget?
I think I might, or let me make sure I'm understanding your question. So if I'm understanding your question, you are asking, is there going to be dedicated time to almost see like a proposed budget before it's online, or just
In this process you've laid out, right? There are a number of steps that are happening internally, right? Where the information, where will there be information that's coming out of that process that'll be shared with the board besides the final recommendation of a budget?
I'm gonna ask Tim what his plan for that is.
So I'll be reviewing that with members of the board before that's submitted on the May 1st date. Mhm.
That
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
My point with this, Tim,
Yeah.
is that, I see that a number of the decisions that get made are really kind of policy related, right?
Right.
Or they have implications of what becomes.
Of what could become.
Yeah,
Mhm.
of the institution.
Yeah,
essentially.
we're running against timelines. Shared governance takes some time to get through all these processes, and so we're working to get what we can done, get feedback on it, build the scenarios, build the proposals, not knowing what those are yet, and so that's why I can't concretely say this is the date you'll get them, but you'll definitely have an opportunity before.
Yeah, no, it's just good to be informed as we go along, right? Apparently, it's not a good idea to create a war without getting some of your colleagues along the way, right?
Indeed,
Yeah,
and
right.
the board needs to be aware of these, so. Mhm.
That was a bad analogy, but
I know.
it certainly
It's
fits
okay.
with.
Yeah,
this point.
got it.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deans, I should say. Thank you. Our shared governance update. Executive Director Deborah Mason and Executive Assistant Katie Riggs providing us with the shared governance presentation. Please come forward. She's got-
You're gonna sit with me, right?
Good evening, Board. Chair
Good
Crenshaw, thanks for having us this evening. I'm Deborah Mason, Executive Director of the Foundation, and I'm with.
I'm Katie Riggs, Executive Assistant to President Tim Cook here at the college.
And we are the co-chairs of the Shared Governance Oversight Group, and we have an update for you. What we're going to do is go through all the different councils and groups, show you the membership, and then also give you one highlight of the things that they're working on. We won't go through every priority they have because that would take far too much time. So we just want to kind of zero in on a highlight. And knowing that we're not actually sitting on all these councils, so there may be questions that we might not be able to answer, but either someone in the room will, or we can get back to you on that. We just want to give you, it's going to be a lot of information. So to begin with, we do have a place where lots of information lives on the My Clackamas website. It is the communication corner for shared governance. You can go there and look up any council or group, get their meeting times, their meeting notes, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of really good information that lives there. Also, we're always asking for feedback. So also on that My Clackamas page, you can look at the Shared Governance Handbook and also link to a place to provide feedback for the oversight group or any of the councils as well.
And so we're going to start with the oversight group. So let me just start by saying at the last board meeting, you were provided by President Cook a brief overview of what our shared governance new structure looks like. And you all received a copy of the shared governance handbook. Now we're going to walk through each of the various councils that make up our shared governance process, along with a few other groups that also make that up. One of the groups is the oversight group. So these are the members on the oversight group, and the members of the oversight group are described in the shared governance handbook as including the college president, the chairs and the co-chairs of each of the councils, the process support group, and the executive team. So you can see Deborah and I are the co-chairs of this, and then you can see which council each of those members represents, or if they represent the executive team. And we want to share with you the purpose of the oversight group, which is to serve as a guiding body for participatory decision-making related to policy, procedures, and the strategic plan work. And we want to move this stuff forward through the college. This group provides collaborative and transparent leadership grounded in strategic, equity, and data-informed processes to evaluate and openly discuss matters in which a decision, recommendation, and/or feedback may be needed. This group is responsible for ensuring alignment between CCC's strategic plan and the council work, ensuring progress, and revising and creating new plans as needed to meet the college's goals. Each year, the oversight group will receive the council priorities for the academic year. So each of the councils do a retreat and they determine what they want their priorities to be for the academic year, and then they submit them to the oversight group. The oversight group uses not only the Cougar Pause, but they meet and discuss and provide feedback to each of those councils on their priorities. So if there was some guidance needed, or if there was a little bit more detail needed on the priorities, or if for some reason it didn't seem to match the mission, vision, and values of the college, then we would provide that feedback during that time. Some of the items, the oversight group also receives recommendations. And so some of the recommendations that have come through the oversight group so far have been to use a new or develop a new knowledge management tool, an intranet for the college through our SharePoint that we already have, but creating it so it's somewhat like a website, but for internal, so the intranet. And we've seen some board policies, or will be seeing some board policies as they come through.
Great. The next group that I will describe as the DEI Community of Practice. And this serves as a resource for the shared governance councils, the process support group, and the oversight group, to ensure that processes and decisions are keeping with CCC values related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you can see the membership here. These members also serve as DEI liaisons for each of the council or groups. And you can see which group each of them are serving with. Each of the members of this community of practice also serve as liaisons for the councils. And the biggest thing, and you've been hearing about this, but the greatest bit of work that they've been working on is really integrating and building confidence using the Cougar Pause. And liaisons are actively doing that with hands-on practice. They're learning how this can surface meaningful impact and insights on equity. They're strengthening the staff's ability to document key themes and then come up with next steps for those. And it is co-creating an effective process of what reporting looks like on these topics. And engagement is high. They're very excited. And you can see it's starting to infiltrate, and we're talking about it at every step of decision-making here at the college. The next one is the Teaching and Learning Council. This council is charged with supporting high-quality, equitable, and relevant teaching and learning through best practices in instruction, a future of curriculum, educational assessment, instructional policies, and educational technology and innovation. And here are the members of that group. David Plotkin and Carol Burnell are co-chairs, and they're actually looking for 2 more members currently, especially from the Arts and Sciences Division. Again, many priorities. I'm just going to highlight one for you, and that is they've been really focused on their strategic priority, which is excellence in equitable teaching and learning. They're looking at considering what progress has been made and adjusting indicators, and identifying and promoting professional development opportunities.
Next, we have the People and Culture Council, as you heard earlier today with the policy presentation. They have broken out into 3 different committees: the organizational health and learning, the employee employee wellness and recognition, and the policy group. Some of the things that they are charged with are employee retention, climate, the employee onboarding and training, improving the effectiveness of CCC's work processes. And knowledge management, obviously, is a huge part of the people and culture. These are the groups broken out, the committees. You can see who are the leads or co-leads of those, and the co-chairs for the People and Culture Council are Melissa McCormick and Sarah Steidel. The priorities for this year are listed here. One main priority that I'd like to point out, again, is the conversion or the implementation of the SharePoint, which is something that we already have. We're just going to utilize it in a different way at the college. And that has taken a lot of time, thought process, and also collaboration amongst various different departments to see how we can best implement this at the college and how we want to use it for our knowledge management tool. This council is also responsible for some of the findings from the, not responsible for some of the findings from the employee climate survey, but responsible for taking pieces of some of the findings and putting some things into action. So some of the things that we heard from the results were discussed during the People and Culture Council and broken out into the various committees. And you can see here on the various committees some of the items that they're working on. For example, the Policy Committee is currently working on addressing harmful behavior and establishing guidelines for a respectful workplace.
Next is our Student Support Council. And this council is involved in participatory decision-making related to policies, procedures, and strategic issues to support students, like prioritizing strategies the college will pursue related to student engagement and engaging members of the community in implementing those strategies. And here are the members. And Daniel Hoffman is the chair. We've got a chair-elect and Josh Amen. And vice chair is Jennifer Anderson. And here are their priorities. And one that they're really working hard on currently is defining student success at CCC. Really trying to find a shared definition and understanding of what student success is to empower and align our staff and faculty efforts. They've worked with institutional research to include related questions in our Student Eyes survey. They've launched or launching a QR code survey for both community members and CCC staff. And they're researching definitions from sister institutions. They're also exploring tools to turn our qualitative responses into quantitative results. And they have also incorporated the Cougar Pause in all of this work.
Next, we have the Finance Council, and they are charged with co-creation of strategy related to financial projections with a goal of identifying and/or creating tools that are reliable, easy to understand, and applicable to ongoing college issues, and the creation of and support of the budget development process that ensures community engagement. These are the members of the Finance Council, with Christy Owen and Mark Yanata being the co-chairs. These are their priorities, and two main priorities that they're working on. Well, besides the fact that you can only imagine how busy the Finance Council is right now in the thick of the budget process and reviewing the scenarios that were just discussed earlier for the reduction process for the budget, and they're receiving a lot of input and providing that to the executive team and then the president and vice presidents to create the proposed budget and get that to the budget committee and ultimately to you as well. Some of the main things that they're working on is supporting that group. So as the Finance Council, they are a part of the Budget Advisory Subgroup, along with additional members who make up that group. And a few other things that they are still working on are fiscal policies. So they are definitely looking at reviewing, and mostly in the research phase at this point, but they're definitely getting feedback and input on it. Policies related to fees, travel, food, and purchases.
Next is our Operations Council. Now, this is a venue for reviewing policies, procedures, strategic issues relating to college operations. Council members consider, identify, and develop best practices and gather input from the community to inform the creation of priorities and plans related to space, which includes grounds, landscaping, and buildings, technology, which is enterprise systems, infrastructure, network security, software, and hardware. And these are the members. Jeff Schaefer and Felicia Arce are the co-chairs of this group, and they do have a new member, which is a student, Nika, which is exciting. Just joined. Many priorities, you can imagine that bond is sort of taking a lot of their time right now, bond logistics and transparency. And this is really important because that can create a lot of trust with the community and alignment across our institution. They also have been having some fun with artwork. There's going to be a cougar sculpture by a local artist using metal from CCC that includes presidential coins and years of service coins. So they're working on that and getting that installed. There's also going to be a large-scale abstract painting going up at the Harmony campus. So they've got a lot going on right now.
And then we have the process support group. So the process support group is they attend to the care and feeding of the college's shared governance structure. This includes supporting shared governance onboarding and training, ensuring effective and transparent communication and documentation, developing and maintaining the shared governance handbook, and assessment and continuous improvement of the process related to shared governance. You can see here the members of this group with Lori Hall and Jenny Miller as the co-chairs and co-leads of that group. These are their priorities for the year, and they are really focused on improving the communication. They have been working diligently on updating a bunch of forms, providing documentation forms for the various councils, and helping them get the word out how new members can join their council, and a way to provide if someone just has an interest in shared governance and being on a council. So they're getting all of that up to us, and every year they look at the handbook as well and try to update that. So that is all we have for you this evening. We hope that it just give you just a little light. It is hard to get a lot of information into a very quick, brief presentation for you. So please, we are here to answer any questions that you might have for us.
I was wondering if you could go back. I think it was the second slide where it showed all the groups. Could you leave that up for me? It'd be great. Yeah, wasn't it?
It's all the way at the
It was
beginning.
pretty early on.
Yeah.
It's it. I mean, I don't know that.
I think it was what the actual My Clackamas. This
Oh,
one right there. That has the list. No, that's not it.
The beginning.
well, we have the actual, these members are each of the councils. So the Teaching and Learning Council, the Operations Council, the Student Success Council, People and Culture Council, Finance Council, Process Support Group, the DEI Community of Practice, and then the executive team.
I guess I have a question since I've got the mic. I took the mic. How do you feel it's working? Seems like a whole lot to manage. How do you feel it's working?
I feel like we're too early still. I know it seems odd that I would say that because this is the second year in. I still feel like we're a little too early to say exactly how I feel like it's working. We did a feedback survey at the end of last year, but we only received about 83 responses out of what do we have, like 900 and some employees. So we're hoping maybe at the end of this year, we'll have a little bit greater response to a survey or some feedback. All in all, I feel like it's good. It's a lot to manage going to all the various different meetings or councils, and it's a lot of work, but it's not, it's good work. It's amazing work. It's stuff that needed to get done and needs to get done.
And I think Katie's right. It seems like it's been happening for 2 years, but it takes a while for all these systems to come into place and people to get used to them. One improvement that there's more communication happening about when these particular meetings are happening with calendar invites, and we are seeing more attendance from the college community at these individual councils. So it's slow, but progress is being made. We're seeing more attendance at these individual meetings. So that's positive. So it'll be interesting to see if we choose to do another survey soon after the second year, how it's all going, but it's
Yeah,
a slow roll.
I'll just add, I mean, we still have challenges with communication, and making sure that people know where to find things and get what they need. The goal with this was not to have everybody attend everything, but to really quickly find if there's an issue or an event or something that they want to know about, to be able to attend that council meeting or follow that. And I think right now still there's some people that really want to try to get to as many as they can, or others that are like, it's just too much and can't figure out how to do that. So we got to work through that, because we're definitely hearing from people that are working on the councils that it's a lot of work. A lot of work to manage. And so we'll see how that plays out. But I know the process group is interested in, figuring out, of course, how to make it more efficient. I know the oversight group was just talking about that as well. So.
I mean, it's bound to be awkward in the early stages, but are you hopeful that it gets more manageable as it gets, I don't know, more use?
I think so. And this work has to happen somewhere, right? So it's being organized in a new and different way. It just takes, I think, a little time to really get it going.
And I hope what you saw too is just in all the membership that the involvement across the campus is much larger than it used to be.
Yeah.
That the previous iteration, had smaller groups that were kind of watching all this. We had an open college council meeting that anyone could come into and provide feedback. And there is there is some folks that have, really missed that one place where everything happened. But overall, we have a lot more involvement throughout the campus in shared governance. So I think that's a positive. It's just, again, sort of how to wrangle it all together and really in clear spaces. Our new SharePoint that you heard about will hopefully help with some of that as we get better with that too. But yeah, there's some opportunity for improvement.
And my question is more about the culture of support, because sometimes it can feel like there's so much that burnout starts to happen. So I'm just kind of wondering how you support each other, what group norms or what things you're using to kind of support each other.
I definitely can see in different spaces. I'm going to point out probably the DEI community of practice for sure. And then I know the People and Culture Council leave space from time to time to ask, at the beginning of the meeting, how are people feeling? How are things going? That sort of thing. But I think there's still discussion to be had about that. I know that both the process support group and the oversight group are still having discussions on how can we support, the folks who are participating on these councils. How can we keep in some sort of a rotation so that it's not always falling on the same folks? Just talking about the transitioning of people and what that looks like.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I'll have to go back and get my form and start reading up a little bit more. But I think it's a great job to getting people involved and getting the college really where we want it to be or think that it should be. You'll make some changes in the process, but I think it's a great job. Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Now it's time for our association representatives' reports and comments. We'll start out with our ASG, Samuel. I don't see Samuel. Daniel is here for him. Then after that, Charlie, you will be the next one up. Please come forward.
Hello. Hello, board. Hello, college administration. It's nice to see you. My name is Daniel Dodd. I am the current acting vice president of the student government we have here on campus. I have a informal update for y'all today. I am filling in for Samuel Power, and I'll try to keep it brief. So good news this term. I'll start off with our lobby day that we had on February 18th. That was a great success. We went with board members and some of the college administration, and we received confirmation that our asks were received. So we're excited about that. Some events that we've had on campus this term include Kindness Week, where we handed out flowers, roses at all 3 campuses. That was very well received by students, staff, and our members on the team. We continue to have themed trivia, I believe every week, Tuesdays. That is through our campus affairs department. Again, greatly received, and it teaches people, especially if there's a historical month or a spiritual week going on, so that students and staff can stay informed about those things. Our advisor in the Multicultural Center, Miranda James, has graciously created a budget sheet for us to use and alongside our budget subcommittee that is chaired by Cadence Gillespie and myself. That is a great help, and we thank Miranda James for that, as it is a little hard to keep a running budget with the way that we receive money from student fees into our accounts. Next term, we have Clubs and Resources Fair, April 18th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. At the circle right out here in the Wachino. It's going to be outside. unless, you know, it rains, we'll move inside. It's going to be floral themed, so look forward to that. We are partnering with the Veteran Center with their car bash. That's going to be a lot of fun for our wellness week. And the car bash is on May 20th, and we are still ironing out the details of wellness week. So that is the good news. We do have some bad news. In total, this term, we have had 5 people step down. During this term, 2 have stepped down and 3 have told us that they won't be continuing next term. Our president, Breonna Davis, stepped down from her position due to health circumstances and is continuing with the team, but please have your thoughts with her as she is healing. And so Samuel Power is stepping up into that position, and I have stepped up into the vice president position. Caitlin Thomas, our secretary, also had health complications during the start of the term. So all in all, we've had a rocky term with our structure in our team. That being said, it is my role and responsibility to do hiring. So I will be working over the break and into next term to try to hire in those positions. We have posters all around campus with QR codes that folks can scan, and I've been spreading the word. So in your positions here, please spread the word. So that is ASG update. I would like to open it up to questions. I do have a personal remark, a very brief one afterwards.
Any questions? Done a great job.
How was the State of the Union?
Well, thank you for asking. That's what I was going to speak on next. Yeah, so can't remember the exact date that I was there. I think it was the 27th of February. But I was asked by Congresswoman Janelle Bynum, and I believe that is your daughter-in-law.
No, I don't know.
You don't know? She asked me to come to the State of the Union address as her guest, and congresspeople and senators get one guest. So I'm very grateful beyond words to her and her team. I spent the whole day with Congresswoman. I attended not press releases, media coverage with news and some different events. I met Hakeem Jeffries, I met Kathleen Clark, so on and so forth. It was a great glimpse into the day in the life of a congressperson and the functions of a DC office. It's like a swarm of bees in there, very busy. Then the event itself, grateful to be there. Longest State of the Union address in history. I decided to stand the whole time, just in case someone could see me. And so my parents at home could see me on the TV. Again, grateful to be there. I have some personal remarks about the event that I will not share here. And with all of that, I was able to represent Clackamas Community College during the news coverage that we had together, the Congresswoman and I. The people interviewing us addressed me as a student from Clackamas Community College, and also I spoke on my experience as a student, because the whole purpose of me being selected as her guest was because I'm a student, and that is what she is supporting. So I wanted to share that with you all because I know some of you have been fascinated on how that was. So overall, it was great. So if anyone has any questions, I'm glad to take them, but that is my update.
Daniel was, as you might imagine, great at the legislative lobby day. I think that he's a big part of why we didn't get the funds cut.
Thank you. I don't know about that. Some of my colleagues were very outspoken.
Thank you, Daniel. Yes, she's
course.
my daughter-in-law.
Mhm.
For the record.
Great to hear it. All right. And also, sorry, last thing, I have some cards for specific folks in this group. So may I hand them out or give them to you? Okay. Here they are.
Thank
Okay.
you so much. Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Yes, it's great to be here tonight. Great to see you all. I do admit though, I almost didn't make it here tonight because when I was trying to turn to the parking lot, my car was trying to go back out to the street. So it's a good thing that I made it here. It was a struggle, but I actually made it in the parking spot. So again, I'm Charles Ledmeyer. I'm the CCCEA president. And what I have for you tonight is from our Business and Computer Science department. Had a very successful student event in February, serving free pizza to students. They welcomed PSU registration and advising so that students could apply for admission for free. Dual enrollment information was also provided for business and CS transfer students. Full-time faculty and associate faculty were on hand to answer questions from the students. And for promotion of the CTE programs, FT Business faculty, Michael Moroso is starting free business startup, a free business startup advice consultation for veterans through the VA Center. So that's kind of cool. Eric Lee from engineering wanted me to say that they wanted to share that advising Emily Melgoza and Summer Baber engineering have paired up to do group advising sessions as a small part of class. Great for the second year engineering students. These sessions are happening outside of class and are focused on ensuring students are on track for graduation and are transfer ready, housing, transportation, scholarships, etc. This is their second year doing this, and they have great success and hope to continue, combined with a requirement to meet advisors at the beginning of their education in intro engineering classes. To ensure students get essential advice that they need to be successful at CCC and beyond. The model is working very well, and the engineering program could be easily exported to any other program with a cohort of transfer students. Jane Littlefield from our library has secured a library service and technology and Act LSTA Strong Libraries mini grant to purchase Spanish language materials to be added to the library collection. The purpose will focus on adding to our tough topics collection, which contains resources on subjects that can be difficult for students to ask about, books that help students strengthen study skills and support college success, and related translations on the website to spread the word to students. An update from our full-time faculty bargaining team. The faculty, or the full-time faculty, along with associate faculty and classified, continue to work very diligently to help the college to address budget concerns during February. All three groups collectively aired concerns about administration decision to hire external counsel at the rate of $350 per hour to serve as chief negotiator for the bargaining with all three associations. We are happy that the administration heard employee feedback and that those concerns were a contributing factor in the college reversing that decision. And that's what I have for you tonight. Any questions? Fabulous. As always, it's truly a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate you being here tonight. Associate faculty. Chris?
Hey, everybody. Christopher Zimmerly Beck, English instructor here at CCC and president of Associate Faculty's Bargaining Unit. Let's see, I took notes. Usually I just sort of spitball, but tonight you get notes. You know, bargaining's on when they're writing stuff down, right? First, I want to thank the people who gave public comment and all of you for hearing us today. It's that time of the term where associate faculty who have worked here for decades, who have nothing but positive evaluations and are celebrated pillars of our institution, begin to call me, their union president, on the phone because one or sometimes more of their classes for next term are being canceled. Adjunct labor is no longer a side job. It hasn't been for decades. Instead, it is the dominant form of teaching in higher education. It is heartbreaking to have a colleague call in tears because they don't know how they will make their rent next term. When you hear us talk about pay equity, it's not 85% of this or that or some complicated calculation, and it's certainly not a money grab. And it is an attempt to get some job security. It's an attempt to defend and preserve an increasingly fragile public education system. I'm not asking you to agree with our association's positions. What I am asking is that you hear us out and weigh our experience, vision, and values with those you hear from the administration. I'm asking you as elected leaders to hear all sides so that you can govern this institution in a way that defends public education and supports our students. Our association reached out and requested your contact information so we could have these conversations with you. President Cook's office refused to give it to us, but please know that we're available. We want to talk with all of you. PCC is on strike over many of the same sort of leadership decisions our administration here is making. We're still early in the bargaining process. I hope you will help our college avoid such a crisis here. I invite each of you to reach out to the associations to hear our side, good, and there's so much good about this institution. We love CCC. And to hear our perspectives about some of the bad, the challenges we're facing. Remember, the associations aren't outside organizations, we're the educators who make this place work. Anyway, like many of our faculty, I have a mountain of grading to do this week. I have about 40 final portfolios to grade, many of which I need to start on tonight. But I just wanted to make sure you heard from us. You shouldn't be kept in the dark, and you should hear from educators who fulfill this institution's mission. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments?
I have a quick one. I'm curious to hear your perspective on what you think the differences in scope and hours of work are between a full-time faculty person and like the average associate faculty.
Sure. So I think, that's a really complicated answer, right? Many of the associate faculty here at the college routinely teach a full-time course load. Many associate faculty actually teach more credit hours than a full-time faculty does, but they're not doing other committee assignments and that sort of thing. But we also have many associate faculty who are fully involved in committee life here on the college in that shared governance structure that we were learning about. So there isn't really like a single answer, especially at this institution. So other institutions, part-time faculty are actually part-time faculty. But here at Clackamas Community College, many of us make our entire living supporting this institution that we really care about. Does that start to speak towards your question? Yeah, happy to talk about it more. I think what we don't want to do is say this work is more important than that work or anything like that. What we want to do is say everybody deserves job security. They deserve to be able to predict what their income is going to be, especially for employees that have worked at the college their entire career. We're talking, some people have worked here decades, and you find out a week, sometimes less. We had someone last term find out after the term started that their classes were being canceled, right? That creates disruption to our students, a lack of continuity, and that's the sort of stuff we really want to problem solve around. So I hope that answers your question, and happy to talk more as well. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. That's right. Is Jennifer available? No? Okay. All right. We're down to our president.
Yeah, I've just got a few items, but before I jump to my report, I'll invite Dean Ann Ennis up to share information about our upcoming accreditation site visit this April 27th and 28th. So thanks for coming up again.
Good evening for a second time. Excuse me. I am here to talk briefly about our upcoming mid-cycle accreditation visit. I was here in December. I talked a little bit more in depth about the report and some of the sections. So I'm going to give you just an overview of where we are in the process and what's coming up. And then I'll take any questions that you might have when I'm finished. So a quick reminder, what is the mid-cycle? We're in year 3 of a 7-year cycle. So that mid-cycle is a formative assessment or it's a check-in. How are we doing? What's going on? What's gone on campus and around in our community since our last 7-year check-in? It's a preparation, as we think of it, for the formal 7-year evaluation, and it comes in 2 parts. There's a report, and then the second part is that on-campus visit that we are just starting to prepare for. So the mid-cycle report is what we talked about last time, and it is completed now. Is actually, I believe, attached to your board books. This meeting, it was completed just last week. And that report guides the inquiry for the visit. It provides context to the 3-person peer evaluation team who will visit us on campus and meet with members of our faculty, our staff, and our administration. It discusses mission, sorry about that, fulfillment, student achievement, programmatic assessment, and the work we plan to do between now and our 7-year visit. And then there's an attached addenda for our 2 outstanding recommendations. One of those has to do with associate faculty evaluation process, and the other one has to do with programmatic assessment. Now, the mid-cycle visit is on the 27th and 28th, and it's a series of meetings for about a day and a half, and we'll cover all the topics that I've listed on the screen here. Now, as you look at that list of topics and you think about a day and a half, we start at 8 a.m. or 8:30 in the morning on Monday. We end around 1 o'clock on the second day. It's quite a few meetings to pack into that day and a half, and they proceed for about 45 minutes apiece every hour on the hour. And some of them happen at different levels. So you might hear a conversation about strategic planning at one level, and then we'll dive deeper in a subsequent meeting on institutional effectiveness, which also has that relation to strategic planning. You'll see different groups of people moving in and out of those meetings. And then we'll have some meetings going on simultaneously as we address those outstanding recommendations. Those meetings are often held simultaneous to the other meetings. So what do we expect to come out of this report and this visit? Well, our peer evaluators will share some feedback with us. They call it the 777 cycle. They will send us a draft copy. 7 days later, we'll send a response back on any errors in fact or questions that we have for them. And then 7 days after that, they will send us the full copy of their report. It will go to the commission over the summer, and we won't hear back until mid-July or the end of July as to what the final outcome is. But those peer evaluators in that final outcome, they may share some areas of interest from the mid-cycle report. They might share some feedback on information that they learned in the meetings with folks on campus. They could make some suggestions for further progress or give us advice on new initiatives, and we invite that feedback to understand how the actions we've taken over the past 3 years can be improved to help us further work towards our goals as we work towards that 7-year evaluation. One thing they will likely not do is give us any new official recommendations. It happens on occasion at mid-cycle visits, but it doesn't happen terribly often. So we don't anticipate that we would get new ones, though it is always possible. And lastly, our current preparations. The report was submitted to NWCCU on March the 10th. As I said a moment ago, you have a copy of that to read through. The visit schedule is in progress. My first meeting with the visit chair is next week. Preparation meetings will be held throughout April, where I will meet with different folks on campus who will be talking to our peer evaluation team, helping them look at the areas of the report that they are most likely to be asked about, and talking them through what kinds of information they may want to share, hearing from them what perspectives they're interested in sharing with that evaluation team. Our peer evaluators will arrive in Oregon City on Sunday, the 26th, and our first meeting is at 8:30 on the 27th of April. Some of you will be hearing from President Cook with an invitation to join us at that first meeting. It'll be an introductory session over breakfast where we will get to know the team. They'll get to know us. We'll start with a few questions on mission fulfillment, and then the visit will proceed from there. Any questions?
What's the expectation of the board at the breakfast? Just to observe?
Excellent manners. I would start there. Enjoying the breakfast. And I'll speak with you ahead of time, but it would be the general expectation would be to be well versed in that mission fulfillment section of the report. That's generally the area on which peer evaluators are interested in talking to the board. Once I meet with our peer chair next week, I'll have a better guide for you as to which areas you might want to familiarize yourself with. But in general, they want to speak with the board about mission fulfillment. As this is kind of our check-in, it's much less formal than that 7-year visit. So there is not that formal meeting with the board with an interview on a number of sections of the written report. You'll get that in 4 years. But in this one, it's good to say, yes, I've read the report. Yes, I particularly paid attention to mission fulfillment. I'd also suggest you look at section 4, which is the moving forward section that talks about what we plan to do over the next 4 years as we prepare for that 7-year visit. And it outlines a bit of our planning for where we see the impact that we've had on our progress in the last 3 years, where we see that going in the next 4 years. So I'd look at those two in particular. After I have the meeting next week, I'll have a more succinct answer. But generally, those are the two I'd pay attention to for the board.
And how did this role become yours?
That's a great question. I believe the accreditation liaison officer has sat with the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness and Planning certainly before my time, though my time is only 7 months
Don't
here.
tell her, yeah.
But it's one that I have not held at a prior institution, but certainly have enjoyed getting involved in and learning quite a bit about. And goodness knows I like to write a research paper, so putting those reports together is a good time for me.
Thank you for answering.
Yes. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was looking at the two kind of outstanding items from the last visit, and the first one seems pretty straightforward. It's about like we want regular assessment of the like associate faculty. The other one seems real vague, and it's hard to kind of understand what it means. So what does assessment mean? And I saw that there were like various percentages of like how often they were getting implemented versus not implemented. Who is making those calls, and whether something is being implemented or not, and what is the assessment process?
Sure. That's a large question, so I'm going to give you the very brief answer. We have a fantastic faculty member named Elizabeth Carney here, who is our assessment coordinator. And Elizabeth really heads up the assessment process, both programmatically and student learning outcome-wise for the college. So Elizabeth has been here really since the inception of assessment in its current iteration at the college, and has had a deep hand along with our colleagues in the Center for Teaching and Learning and our online learning and educational technology space in crafting that area of assessment. What it looks at on the whole is our students meeting their program objectives. So for every program we offer at the college, there are a series of learning objectives or program outcomes that we expect students will be able to perform or know at a particular level when they complete that program. So programmatic assessment is the evaluation of, well, you finished the program, do you meet all of these learning outcomes? Subsequently, we also have student learning outcomes that are attached to every course we teach. And assessment on that level means that we're looking at students, how they perform on their assessments during the course. So whether it's a test or a presentation or a paper, are those rising to the level of that student learning outcome for that particular course? So as we bundle those two together, that is what we call assessment at this college. And what that recommendation is really speaking to is asking us to think about how we can use that data or how we might begin to think about that data at an institutional level. Because right now, our faculty members make assessment-based decisions and interventions in their classes every day. We ask them on a 2-year assessment cycle to consider larger student learning outcomes, program learning outcomes, and to make department-wide or course-level interventions. And they do that in a concerted manner, which is what you read about both in section 3 of that report as well as in the addendum on assessment. But that ask is or on our recommendation is really to ask us to say, how do we bring those together from multiple programs and multiple departments and start to ask ourselves, what is it that we see happening across the college? What are some trends that we see in student populations that might be happening in this program and also in this programming? Our writing department has done a fantastic job of doing some cross-departmental exploration around critical thinking. And it's one we highlight because that has really come from our faculty's examination of student learning. And it's one that we've been able to spread out. And when I say we, I really give all the credit to the writing department and to our assessment coordinator, but one they've been able to slowly move into different areas of the college to say, actually, we want to look at this college-wide, and we can make some interventions across programs, across levels to really increase and improve how our students are leaving the college in this particular skill set. One last thing I will say about that particular recommendation is that our creditor, NWCCU, is in the process of revising their standards. And there will be a new set of standards that are currently in draft format. I have seen them, been able to give feedback on them. President Cook has seen them, Vice President Plotkin has seen them. And they will be released for implementation in January of 2027. I suspect that that particular recommendation may be divided in half or into 2 separate, more clear recommendations based upon that new revision of standards. I speculate when I say that, but one of the purposes of that revision is to help provide clarity in situations such as this to the institution. Because certainly I've had a number of conversations with our liaison reps to the commission to ask for some clarity. Some other folks have had those conversations as well. And we feel comfortable that we understand the meaning of the recommendation, but we also acknowledge that we fit into the area with that recommendation of one of the precise reasons why they're revising that standard.
Tying this back to the other reason that you talked today, it seems like these assessments could provide useful information in terms of like the budget process too, so that we make sure that we're giving a lot of support to the programs that work really well. Do those 2 pieces ever come together and like inform those decisions, or alternatively, like what programs like might need more support to like become more successful?
Sure. I will at this point wholly admit that in my 7 months at the college, that is not an area that I have delved into yet, or that I'm aware we have really fully examined the allocation of resources based on assessment. I would be cautious to tie the allocation of resources based on assessment for a number of reasons. One of which is that in terms of how we measure student learning outcomes, it's difficult to understand that not all students arrive at the same spot. And because we work with students who come here as they are with the background knowledge that they have, and they are all working towards their next step, but that next step might look different, I'd be cautious and hesitant to consider what resources and assessment are linked together.
Yeah, most best performing and most
Yeah.
necessary are not necessarily going to overlap.
Not necessarily overlapping. I will say that to my knowledge, it's not been connected here at the college yet. And I would say I'm cautious to do so because student performance in the classroom and is not, in my opinion, a good indicator of where those it's not a good bridge, I would say, between those two. Certainly, we're interested in programs. Certainly, we're interested in how our programs are performing. And certainly, we hear from programs who say through their unit planning, through other mechanisms, like the unit planning does contribute to budget allocation at some points. And we'll hear programs say, what we need based on our assessment data is this particular item, whether it's a material, whether it's an additional faculty member, whether it is any number of things. So we do hear programs make they make requests for budget increases based on their assessment data. And absolutely, I would support the continued prospect of that. But I think in that area, it's really important that it comes from the faculty working in the programs.
Just have a couple comments. Specific, but also general. I've had the privilege and honor, I think, to sit sort of in the shoes that you and your team are doing, preparing for the visit from the accreditors, the peer evaluators, and writing sections of those reports. And as I'm sitting back today listening to you up here multiple times, but then also others talk about shared governance and the budget, and we receive pretty small reports, short presentations that don't really give us a full picture of the amount of work and effort and hours of conversation from so many different people. And so with this one in particular, I know because I've firsthand experience doing that. And I just want to express my gratitude for everybody that even is behind the faces that we have seen tonight, even in writing these words. It's a lot of work on top of sort of the normal work that you're all doing. So I just want to name that because often these things don't get that kind of attention. But what I'm seeing tonight, and I've seen this since I've been on the board, but a lot of intention and diligence in that work. And that just amidst all the other things that we have to wrestle with, particularly around budget and decisions, it makes it, I feel honored to be able to be a director at this college representing sort of the work that you are all doing. So thank you for all that work, and particularly as the accreditors arrive for that mid-cycle evaluation and the meetings that will then, there's still a lot of work to do. So I thank you in advance for that too.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And certainly I wouldn't be here without the help of a steering committee, and in particular, our conference and events planner and the administrator in the IEP office, who I am continuously amazed at the detail in their preparation, down to it takes 4 minutes to walk from this room to that room, and there's a restroom on the way. And always impressed at how deeply those folks are thinking about the experience that the peer evaluators will have on campus. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Ennis. Just a few more items. So just if you didn't know, this is finals week. So actually I appreciate Charlie, appreciate Kat, others, other faculty and others that have come this week. And so you saw some of them peeling off because they are actually grading papers and exams and the rest. So next week, spring break, and then we'll start our spring term on March 30th. Speaking of accreditation, many of our programs have their own accrediting bodies, and I think you know that, but they go through their own program accreditation with often a national organization as well. And we just had one with our early childhood education program. I know you all know how excellent our program is, but one of the great things about accreditation is to have outside accreditors come and tell you how wonderful our program is. So we had 3 accreditors. I believe they're all from Texas. I'm trying to remember if that's true. Maybe one is from Utah, as I recall. Anyway, 3 outside evaluators come, spend a couple days looking through all of our ECE materials, reading through similar to what Ann was just describing, and then they met with everybody associated with the program. Met with lots of community folks that provide childcare in Clackamas County. The amazing part about that is they came back and had 0 recommendations for that program. It was all accommodations. I've never seen that before. And it was all they talked about was really the fantastic work that Dr. Don Hendricks and then the staff has really done for that program. And so I want to give kudos to Don, and then to Ada Echeverria, who's a faculty member there, Lorette Scott, who's in our education faculty there, and then Elena Zillar, our dean, Armetta Burney, I think still here back here, and then our associate dean, Aaron Gravel, David, all the folks that really helped with that. It was one of those moments where you're like, wow, we do really work at an amazing place, and nice to hear other people say that. Actually, 2 more things. Sorry. A couple weeks ago, Greater Portland Inc., they're a large economic development company in the metro area. They work for Clark County, Washington, Clackamas, and Multnomah County to bring economic development here. They held something called Meet the Presidents. And it was the first time in my 8 years of being a president here that I was in the same room as all the public and private and community college presidents in the Portland metro area. I think there were 17 of us that were in the room. And three of the presidents, the president from University of Portland, Lisa Scari from Mount Hood, and then Ann Cudd from Portland State, gave kind of a panel discussion around the state of higher ed in Oregon and some of the challenges and things that they were. And then each of us got to give about a 5-minute sort of talk about sort of what we were facing on our individual campuses. I'll just say a couple things. One is I'm really proud of my community college colleagues at PCC and Mount Hood and the work that we're doing. And I'm really concerned, frankly, about our four-year partners. The public ones we're hearing more about because it's in the press. PSU, you've seen some of the struggles there. Southern Oregon had to, get a $15 million bailout from the state. There are real serious struggles in higher ed here in our public education. And then what you don't hear about often, what we heard there was really the struggles that the privates are having. The enrollment cliff is real. They're all dropping enrollments. They've been dropping enrollments. It was the first time I ever heard the president from Willamette and the president from Pacific really talk about their hopes for they don't even really call it a merger so much. It's like a partnering of equals, and it was quite interesting to and again concerning to hear just sort of how they're all struggling and what's going to happen. Another second time I don't have a magic ball tonight, but I think we're going to see some more things happen here in the next 2 years around our institutions, whether that is some more mergers or some other types of things happen. It was equally satisfying to be there and amongst my colleagues and really talking about higher ed, and there were a number of business leaders in the room and elected officials, and then also just really sobering is probably the word I would use. Lastly, my last update, for those of you who've been following along, our women's basketball team, with their undefeated season, went all the way to the final championship game on Sunday and unfortunately lost to Walla Walla Community College. It was quite disappointing. The staff and the team was a really kind of a special season. They all really gelled together. It just wasn't their day. And so, if you see any of those folks or run into any of them, they came in second in the NWAC, and there's nothing to shake a stick at. And then our wrestling team came in fifth in nationals, which is, in my mind, our wrestling, and we're so used to our wrestling team being like, first or second or third. It's like fifth in nationals is still pretty amazing. And our coach got the regional honors coach of the year award for that too. So pretty exciting for that. And that's all I have, unless there's questions for me.
No questions for you, but thank you for the report. That was very good. Ryan, do you have a report that you'd like to give?
Yep, I can give the foundation report. The application period for round 1 of the scholarships are open and closing on April 15th. The applications are coming in, and as of printing of this piece of paper, 340 so far, with hundreds more have already started. Please contact Adam Wickert or Deborah if you're interested in volunteering to be a scholarship reader. It's a great opportunity to learn more about our students, their lives, and support the program. The reading period is in the last 2 weeks of April. And I get to talk about this the second time now. The flagship fundraiser, Rise Up, is on May 13th. Invitations are being sent out next week. Please save the date and plan to attend with a friend or colleague. It's a great way for folks to learn more about our college and amazing student body.
Thank you. Are you sure you don't have anything else? Well, kidding. Jane, do you have a short?
Yeah, I have a quick OCCA report. Let's see, mostly it's about the session ending. And when it began, legislators faced a $63 million shortfall in the state budget. And then also a projection of $15.1 billion in federal revenue losses between 2027 and 2031. That was primarily related to Medicaid and SNAP. As the session went on, the economic forecast showed modest improvement. And so it moved from a projected deficit to a $38 million surplus. So in the end, the legislature passed HB 5204, the budget reconciliation bill, which made approximately $155 million in reductions, but none of them, fortunately, were applied to higher education. And also funding for which is funding for CCSF, the Community College Support Fund, and PUSF, Oregon Community Opportunity Grant, and Oregon Promise, they all remained intact. So that was a wonderful result, or that was a good result. Another law that was, or a bill that was being followed by OCCA was Senate Bill 1537, which would have required community colleges to provide publicly accessible email addresses for board members, requirement for non-voting student member on each board, created specific procedures for filling board vacancies, and would have to report to the legislature about compliance. It passed the Senate, but then when it went to the House floor, it was referred to the House Committee on Education, which means that there were insufficient votes for passage. So that bill did not move forward. It had a lot of confusing things in it. Capital construction projects that the college was supporting went through. And then just a kind of going over a few things that OCCA does in advocacy, which is what I say we, because I feel like I'm a real part of it, but they are engaged in direct legislative advocacy before and during the session, in-person and written testimony on numerous bills, work with legislators on amendments related to governance and public meetings law. They create an advocacy toolkit, an online advocacy toolkit, which has talking points, one-page information sheets, all kinds of information as a source on the website where we can go to. The one-click politics advocacy platform is so easy, where they'll just send out a message to us, and I hope everybody did it who was on it, where we can just with one click respond or reply or encourage our legislators to do what we want them to do. During CTE month, OCCA supported a virtual campaign highlighting all college, career, and technical education programs throughout the state. There was the CTE Day and Lobby Day, which I guess we just shined at. Sounds wonderful. Everybody was there. So I didn't get to go, but sounds like it was very, very successful. Also, they have had weekly legislative calls, which were updates on everything, which are always so good. They put out a weekly OCCA Digest e-newsletter that provided updates on all the legislative sessions that we were following, hearings that were coming up, and really work closely with the campus advocacy coordinators, which is our Lori Hall, who is so good. But they shared consistent messages and coordinated advocacy throughout the session, which I think is so important, because that it is a very powerful thing that all 17 colleges speak with one voice when we are at this. It's fairly rare in a number of states, and it doesn't happen in every state in any way. So that's one of the things that OCCA did. So that was kind of the end of the session legislative report that I hope you all received. I think I might have forwarded it too, but I think maybe Katie probably sent it out. I did. Okay, I sent it out, so they have that. Good. And then the only two other things that I wanted to mention was that don't forget the all Oregon Academic Team Luncheon, and I hope everybody's going, or I hope a lot of people are going, because it is excellent. And it's at the Chemeketa on Friday, April 17th, and at the Chemeketa College's Eola Center, which is a great place. And also tomorrow, and this sounds so good, registration is, I mean, you can just, I think, just click onto it, but it's tomorrow, OCCA Lunch and Learn webinar, which is Data, Belonging, and Student Voice, Improving Outcomes for Rural Young Men. And the Ford Family Foundation and Education Northwest are presenting this, and I think it will be excellent. And I just encourage people to go there, or if you can't go, like I can't go, like I say, it's always at the same time as my food bank work in Estacada, but that you can see online afterwards, is online afterwards. So I think that's about all I have for OCCA.
I had a question from them.
Brief report, eh?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess it
Oh, it was
was.
a good one.
Well, thank you. You had, it was.
I don't know what I'd
it
say
was
brief.
something that everybody had to hear it. Everybody needed to know this. Because if you've stayed here this long, it's important that you go home with what I just told you.
Well, I have one item that I need to say. Thank you to Casey and Lori and their team for presentation of the Black History panel discussion down at Harmony. It was really good.
It was
Since
really good.
not that I had anything to do with it, but the young ladies that play on the basketball team, I was so pulling for them to win because they sat next to me and we were talking about generations. You know, we had the old guys and the mid-aged guys and then the young guys and the OGs. And but it was a good information how to maintain excellence in your history. I'm the OG. Yes. But but it was good to talk about how you maintain excellency now, how you're going to pass it on to the future, and how can you understand what it is. It's nothing that has to do with your being perfect or anything of that sort. You talk to people about where they are and where they plan to go. And it was so good. I enjoyed it. So thank you, guys. Thank you. Is there any other business? Irene, you have anything?
The legislative thing.
Yeah, I heard that one. I missed that one.
How much profanity is our ICE statement allowed to contain that we make?
Wade,
No, I have a brief statement.
you brief statement and you're done?
Yeah.
Is that the statement?
Yeah.
Oh, is that how you do it? Oh. Oh.
Yeah, no. Brian?
No, I'm good.
Oh,
No.
no, I too. I saw Witch, the play, and it was wonderful.
Oh,
It was so incredibly good. The
didn't
student
get that.
production, just really, really, really good. Yeah.
We don't want to give him anything to say, just
When I say brief, I mean brief. Yeah. The legislative days, I always enjoy going to the cap. I didn't get to go last year, so I was happy to participate this year. I enjoy the students and what they have to say. They're very convincing, and the legislators are always very open to listening to community colleges and our needs. And they obviously responded with not reducing our budgets. They certainly could have. But I know Samuel told his story 3 or 4 times. He wasn't here tonight, unfortunately, but I asked him to tell it the 4th time because we were in front of another legislator and I heard it in another room. And he was just very inspiring about what education had done for his life, right? He didn't expect to even get an associate's degree, right? And he's gone on to go after, graduate degrees. Just an impressive story. And several, and you saw Daniel tonight, he was also very impressive in the rooms with the legislators. But it kind of, I don't know, justifies why we support the students, right? It's very enlightening and motivating to listen to their stories. And that they're effective as well. So they're an effective tool for getting budget dollars. And I'm grateful for them and their willingness to participate. Gives you hope for the future, right?
There are no further business. No. You're out of order, yes, right? The Clackamas Community College Board of Education meeting is adjourned.